Thank you, hello. We're about to start. Can everyone hear me? Good. Thank you for coming. Please stand for a Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. It's great to have this type of turnout. I wish everybody turned on for regular meetings like this, you're always welcome to come. Thank you so much. Today we have the presentation for 300 Chestnut Ridge Road, the BMW property. I'm going to give you a little background so you understand what this mayor and council is facing, what the state of New Jersey is facing, and whatever every other municipality near us and throughout the entire state of New Jersey is facing. Now, Mount Laurel started around 1975 with Mount Laurel 1 and Mount Laurel 2, which enshrined in the United States Constitution a mandate for affordable housing. That was done by an activist Supreme Court during the 70s. From the 70s throughout the 80s and 90s, there were different revisions to the Affordable Housing Act. Some of the major revisions were the elimination of the RCAs. Before, they would look at affordable housing development regionally, and municipalities like Woodcliff Lake, like Montvale, some other municipalities could say, Hillsdale, you need affordable housing. We'll give you $1 million to develop affordable housing in Hillsdale. And that's how it was done. Sometimes in communities that needed more affordable housing, like Camden, Newark, communities adjacent to transit hubs, and they would transfer money to those communities. Well, later on in legislation, that was taken away from municipalities. But the biggest impact that affordable housing has in the state of New Jersey is called the developer's remedy, right? That means that the state of New Jersey will mandate affordable housing to each municipality. If municipalities oppose that mandate, a developer could come in and say, we will develop that affordable housing. We will give you the units that the state mandates. And if a municipality does not agree to that, we will sue to get our mandates through. So with the hammer of the affordable housing developers remedy and the court system and state law supporting that, many municipalities have had to face developers remedies. Right? Let's go into 2024. 2024 was the last amendment to the affordable housing legislation proposed by Senator Troy Singleton and Nicholas Scuteri. And along party lines, it was voted to ratify the affordable housing law and created some strict standards on municipalities to move forward with affordable housing. Some municipalities challenged that. So let me give you an example. Englewood Cliffs, they challenged it. Developers sued Englewood Cliffs. It went through the court system. So Englewood Cliffs was mandated with a certain amount of affordable housing. Well, guess what? They lost that suit, and they got stuck with building 1,500 units, right? Another example, our neighboring community of Park Ridge. They challenged the development of the Sony property. They, in fact, increased everybody's taxes to fight the litigation. They lost. Right? So even though all of us up here want to limit this insanity, it's out of our hands. It really is out of our hands. Only you could effectuate change. Only you could change affordable housing. How is that done? The voting booth. You could change laws by going to the voting booth, understanding what affordable housing is in the state of New Jersey. It's probably one of the only states in the nation that mandates this type of development. Now, We were very creative in the last round. We're talking about the third round of development. We ended up, through some creative planning, recertifying the units on Centennial that were coming up for recertification. That's 40 units right there. We put an overlay over the Teva building across the street from here for 55 and over housing whenever it ceases to be a corporate building. We dedicated certain affordable housing units for our affordable housing site on Broadway. And we used the vacant BMW to put some units there. So in the end, we really had a reasonable development of probably 23, 24 units on North Broadway. Fair Share Housing agreed with us. We litigated the matter. We got our judgment in repos. We were out of the third round. Guess what? The fourth round is here. And by the way, the fifth round is coming. So the fourth round, Fair Share Housing, the Department of Community Affairs says, Woodcliff Lake, you're mandated of building 423 affordable housing units, right? So how is this built? There is a requirement of 20% set aside in affordable housing. So you build that, it's 423 affordable housing units, then that's where the density comes in. So knowing this and knowing that we had BMW coming up, we have Hilton coming up, we have Party City coming up, we have our corporate buildings coming up. After COVID, these corporate buildings started losing personnel, taking tax appeals. We had to cover those tax appeals to cover the money that we were losing, right? So we started planning. So when BMW came to us through CBRE, the real estate company, they said BMW wants to sell the northern portion of BMW. I said, okay. I got together with our legal team, our economic development team. I want to thank Councilwoman Nikki Marsh, Council President Josh Stern, and Councilwoman Julie Brodsky, who consistently met with the CBRE group to say, listen, we prefer not to have any housing. We prefer to keep it corporate if we can. I myself started reaching out to hotels because hotels gives you it gives you a property tax and a hotel tax. We reached out to several establishments, right? These are large properties. CBRE agreed with us and said, we will look for the best possible developer you could have. So I said, look, if it comes down to housing, we want to have someone who understands Woodcliff Lake, who would work with Woodcliff Lake, and at the same time allow us to meet our mandated state requirement of building these things. We're not the only ones going through this. Montvale, you see what's going on. KPMG is going up soon. It's hit every single municipality in the state of New Jersey. So what could we do? We could try to limit the damage as much as we can, right? We could try to isolate development much as we can. We could try to place development in areas that doesn't impact our residential neighborhoods as much as we can. And that's what we started looking. So when we met again with CBRE and they said, we have a developer. We have a developer that's a Saddle River resident. We have a developer that understands Woodcliff Lake. We have a developer that would work with you. But I'm telling you right now, Carlos, we have Toll Brothers that came in and want to put up 500 units at the BMW site. We have Pulte Homes that comes in and wants to put up 600 units at the BMW site. But these are developers that are national developers that don't give a damn about Woodcliff Lake. So we said, we don't want these developers. So if it comes down to development, we want to work with someone that could meet our requirements and also build a reasonable project. And I know 370 units to you is not reasonable. To many in the state of New Jersey is not reasonable. But those are the cards we're being dealt. So we have to make the best of it as much as we can. The area is changing. We no longer have our farms. We no longer have our corporate buildings. So we have to adopt that change and try and make it as best as we could. So as we met, we said, okay, We could isolate the project at BMW. We could isolate the project at Hilton, right? And let's try to make the best deal we can for our residents. And that's where we are today. So I'm going to ask you, I know a lot of people have a lot of questions. So everyone has an opportunity to speak. I'm going to ask that everyone come up for 3 minutes. If you have a comment, state your comment. If you have a question, state your questions. Once everyone is done with their comments and questions, I will direct those comments and questions to our professionals or to whoever you address the comments to. That way we can move and everybody gets their answers and everybody could participate in this process. This is an important process. Again, this is a process where 423 units in Wycliffe Lake is very difficult to meet. Okay, with that being said, in terms of the presentation of the redevelopment plan, I'm going to introduce Mr. Russo. Oh, okay. Sure. Give us a second until we put out some more chairs. Put them up in the front. Okay, folks. Hello? I just, our attorney corrected me. Our initial number was 423 in terms of the mandate. We challenged that in court, and it was reduced to 360. But still, there's a 360 affordable housing unit mandate. So at this moment, I'd like to introduce Ed Russo, of Russo Development, for the presentation. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to all the members of the governing body for allowing us to make a brief presentation tonight. And we appreciate all of the resident attendance. We apologize for not bringing more hard copies of our conceptual plan set, but we're happy to send them to anyone who would like to have a hard copy. To give us your name and an email address after tonight's hearing. Excellent. Okay, great. So, very quickly, by way of background, my name is Ed Russo. I'm a principal at Russo Development. We are one of the two companies that partnered to bid on the BMW property when it was offered for sale dating back to the spring of last year. Our partners in this transaction are Woodmont Properties. Like Russo Development, Woodmont has significant experience building throughout not only New Jersey, but also in Bergen County in particular. The principals of both of our organizations live in Bergen County. I live a couple miles from the site and, been here for close to 40 years, really my whole life. So we really consider this project to be something of personal interest to us. You heard the mayor talk a lot about affordable housing, and we understand that affordable housing planning is a big challenge for communities today. Our goal, though, is not to just build a project that Woodcliff Lake is supporting because it has a state-mandated affordable housing requirement. Right? Our goal is to propose something that the borough and hopefully many of the residents in the community feel is a positive for the community, not something that's being forced simply for affordable housing reasons. And we have carefully studied not just the affordable housing that's being created for the project, but the other aspects of the project in terms of fiscal impact, how it relates to what's been on the property for the last 37 years, right? The existing office building that's there today has been there for many years, and we've really tried to compare what we're proposing to what the community has been used to with BMW's office use for the last several decades. We're going to quickly run through our conceptual design presentation, which we handed out. We're going to talk a little bit about, the high-level planning aspects of the project. You're going to see a lot of images of our proposed design. You're going to see a lot of images of other projects that we built that we think are representative of what is appropriate for the BMW site. We're going to talk a little bit about the fiscal impacts of the project and what we studied from a traffic and school-age children point of view. But what I would say to you is we're going to try to be brief in our presentation tonight because there's going to be more opportunity for us to engage with both the governing body, members of the land use board, and also hopefully the community on the more technical aspects of our application once we get before the land use board. And, we are very close to finishing our fully engineered design for this project, which would be submitted to the land use board and the subject of further hearings before that board. So again, tonight we're going to focus our presentation really on the overall concept plan and some of the inspirational architecture for our design. One last comment before we get to our design. Mayor Endo, I think, did a great job of summarizing the process over the course of the last 15 months. Just a couple additional details to add. We, when BMW marketed this site through CBRE, their broker, dating back to last summer, we were one of what we heard was close to 20 companies that submitted proposals. And, you heard the mayor talk about the variety and density that was being proposed by some of the developers that had submitted offers. Our goal for the site was never to propose something that was overly dense, that wasn't warranted from a planning point of view, and that was one housing type. So what we've really tried to do, dating back to last summer and all the way through the last 12 to 15 months of planning, initially with BMW and then more recently with the borough's professionals, is create a plan that had a mix of uses, a mix of housing types, a mix of non-residential uses, a plan that was respectful of some of the significant vegetation that exists on this property, right? For anybody that's driven north and south on Chestnut Ridge Road, you can appreciate that there's a very significant wooded buffer and a berm along Chestnut Ridge that really creates a nice landscape and visual screen for the buildings and the parking deck that are out there today. So we had an opportunity over the last year to submit close to 30 concept plans, again, initially to CB and to BMW because they were very interested in what was going to be built on this property. You know, BMW was not looking to just sell this property and leave Woodcliff Lake. And not to, criticize other businesses in the area, but, there's been a number of corporations that have been in Montvale or Park Ridge that, over the course of the last 4 to 6 years that have sold their properties and have left and have not maintained a presence in the community. Some recent examples would be Mercedes-Benz in Montvale. Mayor Rendo mentioned the Sony property in Park Ridge. That's another good example, or even more locally, AZI, who occupied a few of the buildings here on Tice's. They vacated and are no longer in town. BMW is still maintaining a very significant presence in Woodcliff Lake in the southern portion of the property, right? These are the former Ingersoll Rand buildings, which they renovated and built a couple additional buildings. So my point in saying all that is they were very concerned about what they would be, what they would be next to, right? They wanted to know very specifically, what are you proposing? How is it going to complement our office buildings that we intend to be in for an extended period of time? And if it can't be another office use, what can it be that is creative and that can be used not just by your residents, if you're going to build housing on the site, but what's available as an amenity for our employees and what's available to residents in the community. So we went through that process with BMW, and then we got, I think, very good feedback during the planning process from the borough's professionals. And, after, over a year of exchanging concept plans, we arrived at what we're presenting tonight. Our plan, Diogo, go ahead, let's start with the first sheet. So we start by studying what the existing conditions are anytime we prepare a concept plan. If you can look at anybody who has a hard copy, you can see in sheet A0.1, we're basically showing an aerial of the site. The site today is improved with 220,000 square feet of office space and a 500 plus or minus space parking deck with some surface parking. So we looked at the existing building, and our goal initially was to try to limit our development as much as possible within the disturbed portion of the site. The existing office building and the existing parking deck, right? The parking deck being on the right-hand side of the plan that you're looking at, and the building being closer to Glen Road, take up a pretty significant portion of the property. The two most vegetated areas of the site are one along Chestnut Ridge Road, two along the Garden State Parkway. There's a fairly significant wooded area. And then three, between the BMW office building and Glen Road, there's an open space that historically was used as like a passive orchard. You can see over the course of the last year or so, maybe longer, it's not in the condition that it was historically. I mean, at one point, it was a pretty vibrant wood stand. Now, given that the property's been vacant for close to a year, it's not nearly as, the vegetation's not nearly as desirable as what you're seeing along Chestnut Ridge. So we studied those three areas, including the existing building footprint, and we said, where would be the least intensive place to develop? If you look at the next sheet, you can see that we have, which is A0.2, we have a black and white overlay of our proposed plan on top of the existing improvements. So our plan will become more clear when you see our colored site plan, but the purpose of this plan is just to illustrate where our buildings fall relative to what's on site today. And you can see, looking from right to left, the multifamily building, which is approximately 297 apartments. It's a 4-story building as you look at it from Chestnut Ridge Road, and it has a flat roof. So it's not as high as a typical 4-story building that would have a sloped roof. The proposed redevelopment plan has very specific setback and height limitations. And along Chestnut Ridge Road, we were very careful, not only based on BMW's recommendations, but the boroughs and its professionals, to be very sensitive to what these buildings would look like from the street. So you can see on this image exactly where that multifamily building, which is labeled as Building A, falls. It sits almost entirely on top of the existing parking deck in the existing office building. When you look to the left of that building, you'll see a series of smaller buildings. These are intended to be townhomes. They're 3 stories in height. As we move from right to left on the plan, the height of the buildings gradually decreases as you get closer to Glen. These buildings, these 9 townhome buildings with around 47 units, are 3 stories and are, more representative of a lower density, for sale, not for rent housing type. There's some examples of townhome communities in the immediate area. There's the Gables right behind us over here on Chestnut Ridge behind Tice's Corner. There's a project called the Enclave, which our partners Woodmont Properties built in Montvale that has townhomes. So that was the intent for this central portion of the site. And then as you look to the left at Glen Road, we have 2 restaurant buildings, which are single story. They could be 2 stories, but the current planning at this point is for them to be very generously sized restaurants that can accommodate full service uses. Think, Fire and Oak, think the River Palm or Bonefish Grill, like restaurants of that size that are meant to provide nice dining options at night. And then there's a smaller restaurant of about 3,000 square feet that's intended to be more limited service, lunch, breakfast. Given the site's location adjacent to the on-ramp to routes to the Parkway South, we think a lot of that morning traffic coming south on Chestnut Ridge and looking to get to the Parkway would find a small, breakfast, lunch place convenient here, and that's what the intent of the smaller restaurant is. And then there's a supportive housing building, which you'll hear us talk a lot about, in between the restaurants and the townhomes. So high level, I hope this plan illustrates that, we really tried to maintain those buffers from Chestnut Ridge Road and to leave them in their current state. And for the development that's happening on the green part of the site closest to Glen Road, we went with a lower intensity of development. Our next sheet 1.1 shows a colored version of the plan we just went through. So here it becomes a little bit more clear where the buildings fall from the apartment building on the right-hand side of the plan all the way towards Glen. There's a significant amount of open space still being preserved on the site, close to 50% of the total lot area. And one of the things that the borough asked us to consider to take advantage of that open space was a path that was open to the public that went around the entire perimeter of the site, which our plan contemplates, right? That walking path would originate at the corner of Glen and Chestnut Ridge, where you'll see from our later images, we've proposed a water feature, a significant outdoor open space, something that can not only be used for passive recreation and to provide outdoor dining options for the restaurants, but also something that is a visually appealing at the Chestnut Ridge Glen Road intersection, which we recognize is a very visible and fairly busy intersection in terms of this part of northern Bergen County. So we knew that intersection warranted something that was set back from the intersection, but also created something of visual appeal. As you flip through the next couple sheets, you're going to see that we have larger images of each component of the project. So for those of you that don't have a handout, this next sheet shows a blown up version, A1.2 of the townhomes, the supportive housing building, which is labeled as Building B, and the 2 restaurants, 1 and 2. The supportive housing building, for any of you that are not familiar with what that is, there are several different operators of supportive housing that are active in this area. You might have heard of Bergen County United Way. Spectrum for Living is another one. New Concepts for Living is another one. It's basically housing for adults with developmental disabilities or physical and mental disabilities. And the need for this type of housing is significant throughout New Jersey, even though there's been a number of projects built over the last 10 years by, those 3 companies that we mentioned and others. There still is a shortage, like there is for affordable housing, of this type of special needs housing. So the reason why we proposed special needs housing here is because it is promoted by the state as part of their affordable housing requirements. It does count as affordable housing, and it doesn't create as many school-age children and some of the other fiscal impacts that family affordable housing creates. We do have family affordable housing units in the plan within the apartment building. There are 34 family affordable housing units proposed. Those units are designed to meet the state's what's called UHAC requirements. And those requirements require affordable housing to have a certain bedroom distribution, certain unit sizes. They have to look and feel both from outside the units and inside the units like market rate units look. So because there's a 20% set aside of affordable housing on this site, which is significant, right? That's 74 total units across the property. We chose, working with the borough, to split the affordable housing across 2 different housing types, not just do all special needs housing or all family units, to have a mix of the 2. And it's close to a 50-50 split. 34 family units, 40 special needs beds, or 26 special needs units. Beds count as a unit for special needs. On the next sheet, you'll see that we prepared a ground level plan for the site, and we have a plan for each level of the proposed buildings so that you can see exactly how the building heights change throughout the site. So this plan that you're looking at here, A1.3, this is not visible from Chestnut Ridge Road because there's a meaningful grade change to the property from Chestnut Ridge to the Parkway. There's a 50 to 60 foot change within that area. If you exclude the grade change in the wooded area along the Parkway, there's about a 30 foot change on the developable portion of the site. So to design for that 30 foot change, we put parking below the proposed residential building. So the parking is completely covered, it's screened, it's not visible from the outside of the building. That's what this plan illustrates. This is the lowest level of parking, which is 15 feet below Chestnut Ridge. The next sheet is the next level of parking. This is also below Chestnut Ridge. The next level above that is the first occupied level of the site. So level with Chestnut Ridge Road, the first apartment units are visible, and also the ground level of the townhomes, which don't have covered parking. They have driveway parking like a conventional single-family home or townhome. That's all generally level with Chestnut Ridge, as is the supportive housing, as is the 2 restaurants that face Glen Road. If you look at the next sheet, this is the second floor plan, right? So you're seeing basically the same thing on the second floor that you would see on the ground floor, except the restaurants don't have, at least today, they're not proposed to have a second floor. The next sheet shows the third floor. And then the final sheet is just the apartment building, right? So the apartment building is the only part of the site that's 4 levels. Very quickly, we're going to take you through some images of what's being proposed here, and then also some inspirational photos of other projects. This is a view of the apartment building inside of the berm that runs along Chestnut Ridge Road. So if we were to show you a rendering of what the buildings would look like from Chestnut Ridge, especially this time of year with foliage on the trees, the buildings would not be significantly visible. You would be able to see them like you can see the office buildings that are there today, but they would not look nearly as clear as this looks. This was taken from the loop road that's inside the property, and we are proposing all of our development. If you are familiar with this roadway inside the property that's there today, right? You have Chestnut Ridge, and then you have a road that runs parallel to Chestnut Ridge on the site. Our development is inside of that road. So that's where this image was taken from, at that loop road. This is another image looking at the same elevation, but looking to the south. The last image was looking to the north. And then this is a rendering of what these 3-story townhomes could look like. Our goal is to design nice buildings. We recognize Wycliffe Lake is an affluent community. We can all drive around and look at residential buildings, some that look nice, some that don't look so nice. You know, we want to build a project that looks very, very nice. That's our goal. This location warrants that. You know, I personally drive by this site every single day, right? When I get on the Parkway, the last thing we want to do is build something that residents aren't proud of and the governing body doesn't feel is appropriate for this location. So hopefully some of these renderings illustrate that, and more importantly, some of our completed project photos. Well, before we get to that, this is a rendering of the water feature on the corner of Glen and Chestnut Ridge. So you can see in the foreground, right, the left-hand side of this image is Glen, the right-hand side of the image is Chestnut Ridge, and then what you see in the background are the 2 restaurants that are planned. This is a close-up of one of the restaurants. A lot of open space, a lot of landscaping, a lot of areas for outdoor dining, outdoor recreation. Similarly, this is the smaller restaurant. You see we have labeled it with cafe, right, to kind of build off of that breakfast and lunch theme. And then here's another image of that outdoor space around the food uses. Our landscape architect is going to make a much more detailed presentation before the Land Use Board. It's a firm out of South Jersey called Malolo and Bauer. They do a lot of very creative park, recreation, private development, landscape designs. And I would encourage you to look at some of their completed work, you know, on their website for some inspiration for what this has the potential to be. And then just a few images of projects that we've built that have a similar look and feel to what we're proposing here. Not all identical. I mean, we really try to pride ourselves on building unique projects on each site. But if you look at these images, you can see the types of facades that we put on our buildings, the size of the windows, the amenities. Keep going, Diego. The interior finishes. These are all intended to be of a high quality nature and to be durable over a long period of time. We in Woodmont rarely sell mixed use projects. It's very hard to make a reasonable return building projects like this, given what they cost to build, by just building them and selling them. So we generally will build and we will try to hold them for as long as we can to create value. And the way to create value over a long period of time is to build quality buildings. This image in particular is of a project that's in Hackensack, which Mr. Reiner served as the planner for. And you know, he deserves a lot of credit for how this project looks and functions, because this is, you know, a bigger project, more dense than what we're proposing for the BMW site, but the quality of the architecture and the level of the amenities, really something that I think is unique throughout Bergen County. And then these are just some other example images. So I'm gonna move off of our concept plan and just hit a few more talking points before we open it up to questions from the community. You heard us talk a lot about affordable housing, and what I would like to say is, you know, we've been building affordable housing for a long time in New Jersey. You know, we're proponents of affordable housing because we're developers and it's a part of our business. But I think you'll find, and we've experienced this, that even though affordable housing is mandated by the state, affordable housing residents are among our best residents. And when I say our best residents, like they're good neighbors. They don't break the rules in their leases in general, right? I'm painting general pictures, but over a good sized portfolio and a lot of different, areas, affordable housing residents in general, they appreciate the apartments and the homes that they have. They're very hard to get. They're in significant demand, right? The lotteries that are required when you are marketing affordable housing units, right? For the 34 apartments that we have available here, it wouldn't be uncommon to have 600 or 700 residents sign up for a lottery. There's that much demand for these types of units. So the residents that are lucky enough to get these homes, they don't want to lose them. They're model citizens in general because, it's very hard to get a affordably priced apartment. And for that reason, they become a very, I think, beneficial part of the community. Woodcliff Lake, when they submitted their fourth round plan, of which this project was a part, to the state of New Jersey back at the end of June, the BMW site was planned for around 70 affordable units, around 390 total units. Our current plan is 370 units. So we have had some revisions made over the last couple months to reflect comments that we've received from the borough and its professionals to try to limit the density as much as possible, have spaces reserved for the other uses I mentioned, the restaurants, the open space, the water feature. So there are some differences between that plan that some of you may have seen if you were before the land use board or the governing body when that plan was adopted again in June to the plan that you're seeing today. But all of those changes I think have been for the better, certainly. From a traffic point of view, we've had fairly extensive dialogue with Bergen County because both Glen Road and Chestnut Ridge are county roads. And because of that, we'll require approval not just from the Woodcliff Lake Land Use Board, but we'll require approval from Bergen County to change the use for the site. And Bergen County has given us input in terms of what they would allow and what they would recommend for access points. We're largely trying to maintain the same access points that are there today. So if you look at this plan, the driveway that's all the way on the right-hand side of the sheet exists today. The driveway that's in the center of the plan that separates the proposed apartments from the townhomes is also very close to what's out there today. What's new are the driveways that are serving the proposed restaurants, one on Chestnut Ridge, one on Glen Road. They're both limited access movements. They're limited to right turn in, right turn out. So they're not full movement. They're not signalized. The design of these driveways was a reflection of the input we received from the county. And we're happy to talk more about those access points and our overall traffic study when we're before the land use board. Even though as you look at this plan, you see a number of buildings, a number of parking spaces, the amount of traffic that was generated by this property historically because of the 220,000 square foot building, because of the 500 parking spaces, is not significantly different than what we anticipate. The peak times are a little bit different because the retail and the residential has slightly different peaks than the office use, but the overall volume of traffic relative to the prior use will not be significantly different. From a fiscal impact point of view, we've carefully studied what the property generates in real estate taxes currently, and what our proposed development is projected to generate based on our underwritten rents, expenses. Fortunately, there's a lot of data that's available today for these types of projects because a number of them have been built over the last 10 to 15 years, not only by companies like ours, but by our partners at Woodmont and others. So it's not hard to model what the market is, right? If you know where to find the data, and we're happy to share it, you can pretty accurately estimate what revenues would be generated by the project, and those revenues are directly impact the rateable for the community. So today, the property generates about $1.5 million dollars a year in real estate taxes. Those real estate taxes are split between the borough's local school district. There's a regional school district, which I know all of you know, Pascack Hills High School, which Wycliffe Lake, Montvale, Rivervale, and Hillsdale all contribute to. And then you have the county share of the tax base. So today, the $1.5 million a year in taxes is split between those four different buckets, so to speak. The county share is about 11% of the total tax base. The municipality share is about 25%. And then the regional district is about 26%. And the local school district is about 37%, right? So what we studied is how much of the revenue that's going to each of those different parties today, how does that compare to what the project would generate post-development? And the first assumption that we started with is, what is the likely assessed value for the property into the future, right? The $1.5 million a year in taxes that are paid for this property are based on a $70 million assessment for the site. 90% of that assessment comes from the improvements on the property, not the land, the office improvements. Those improvements have been vacant for over a year. And the office market in this part of Bergen County, unfortunately, is not what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? There's been a slow decline in office space in suburban areas. That's why you see 100 Tice vacant, 155 Tice vacant, sites like Mercedes, Azi, Park Ridge that have been redeveloped, right? There's too much office space in this market. So what I would say to you is that the most conservative way that we could project fiscal impacts to the borough for this site is to say, let's assume that the office building was viable and it stayed on the site for the next 30 years, which is a stretch because it's very hard to lease that building in the condition that it's in today. If you believe that that was the case, over 30 years, the amount of revenue that our development would generate is about $54 million more than what the office building would generate. And that assumes an increase in taxes of about 1.5% a year. That's conservative. Taxes could go up even more than that. We used a conservative number, 1.5% a year. There's still a $54 million difference. If you believe that what's out there today is unlikely to remain, and that really the value of the property is much less than what it's assessed for, which, what we're under contract to purchase it for less than a third of what the current assessment is, then the delta between our development and what the property would generate in revenue to the borough is closer to $78 million. So there's a pretty significant potential increase in revenue for the borough, regardless of how you model what's out there today and regardless of how you project what we're proposing. We know that fiscal impact is not always the most important thing to the borough and to its residents, but it's a factor, right? It's a factor in the planning for these sites. And in a small community, another $50 to $78 million a year in revenue is a meaningful amount, especially for a property that's currently vacant. The last thing that I'll say, and I apologize for going on for so long, when it comes to school-age children, which we know is a very important topic for any residential project, we are prepared to submit a very significant and detailed analysis of other communities in the area, how many school-age children they have, what the state estimates in terms of school-age children for the different housing types that we're proposing. As many of you probably know, a lot of the children that are generated from projects like this come from the affordable housing, and the affordable housing is mandated by the state. So, those children, need to be accounted for in the school district one way or the other. The market rate housing tends to generate a lower ratio of children. Some local examples, if you look at the Gables and, around the corner from us, which is 40 townhomes, from the data we receive from the borough, there's only 6 or 7 school-age children living in that community, and that's 40 townhomes, and they're good-sized units. So we don't anticipate that there's going to be a meaningful amount of school-age children relative to the size of the borough school district from this project. And what I will say about the school district, there's been declining enrollment over the last 10 to 20 years. In 2004, there were approximately 894 students enrolled in the local district. That excludes Pascack Hills. That's just K through 8. That number dropped to around 791 students in 2015, and as of last year, it was about 732. So there's been a 15 to 20% decrease over the course of the last 20 years. So what I would say to you is, as you consider the impact of this project on the school district, consider what the current enrollment is, and I think you'll find that having more families coming into Woodcliff Lake is something that the borough can support. With that, I'm going to pause, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Russo. At this moment, I'd like to introduce our planner, Fran Reiner, and our redevelopment attorney, Wendy Rubenstein, so that way you could understand from the borough's perspective what we faced, how we tackled the problem, and how we'll proceed in the future concerning development. So, Mr. Reiner, the floor is yours.
Mayor, thank you. So I know there's going to be a lot of questions that come up. And so I want to kind of reset what this meeting is about and what the mayor and council are being asked to consider this evening. So Ed was able to go through in a lot of detail about, issues regarding the site plan. This evening, what the mayor and council are being asked to do is consider what's called a redevelopment plan. And a redevelopment plan represents zoning. The developer, if the redevelopment plan is adopted, the developer will be required to come in front of the land use board and present a site plan application. At that site plan application, the developer will be required to provide detailed information on stormwater, on traffic, on school-age kids. They'll provide detailed information about elevations and materials that are being proposed, phasing and construction, trash pickup, as well as taxes. So although you've been given a presentation that looks like it's complete, the public will be given multiple opportunities moving forward to ask questions regarding specific items about taxes, about traffic, about what the buildings will look like from Chestnut Ridge Road. So again, tonight is really about the mayor and council considering the adoption of what's called a redevelopment plan, and a redevelopment plan simply represents zoning. So you have a zoning map that identifies different districts, and within those districts, within the borough, you're permitted to do certain things. Tonight, the redevelopment plan will allow this developer to move forward with a site plan application with the information that he's presented this evening, but he's only presented at a very high level. All of the detail will be provided at a first reading. The mayor and council will actually at a site plan application, so that it will be presented to the planning board, and the planning board will walk through with the developer all of these questions, and the public is asked to come to those meetings and ask those specific questions. I say all that, and I know you're going to ask a lot of detailed questions, and what I want to make sure everybody understands is this evening we may not be able to answer those questions, and we may not have the answers because we're ahead of the site plan application. Russo has not had a chance to look at all of the details of those responses. They provided just a high level. So if we tell you tonight is not the appropriate time to answer that question, it's not an attempt to be dismissive. It's really just to understand that not all of that detail is known yet. But the public will have an opportunity at the planning board at a site plan application in the future, should the mayor and council choose to adopt this redevelopment plan. So I wanted to give a little bit of a history of how we got here, and the mayor did a very good job regarding the affordable housing requirements, as did Ed in terms of talking about the process with the sale of the property. So just to reiterate a few of the things the mayor said, in March of 2025, the state mandated through its fourth round affordable housing requirements that every municipality provide affordable housing for a 10-year period, and starting in 2025. through 2035. And the borough had a number of 400 and some odd, and they were successful in reducing that to 360 affordable housing units, meaning that the borough had to provide a reasonable way for 360 affordable housing units to be constructed over a 10-year period. And if you do the math on a 20%, that means 1,800 units. So that you get the 20% set aside, that would be the 360 that are required. And as a part of that, the state required that all properties that were ripe for redevelopment, meaning properties that were either vacant and or were, in the case that Woodcliff Lake has, where you have properties where their office buildings have been, or office users have been vacated, those represent what the state has deemed to be ripe for redevelopment. When we first met with developers, as Mr. Russo indicated, the site was put up for sale. We had developers come in with plans for over 600 residential units. And we met with the Russo Group early in the process, and they had plans that were over 400 units that were being proposed, all multifamily. And through a series of multiple meetings and back and forth, we worked to reduce those numbers to what the plan is proposed now, which is 370 units, and broken down to allow for 297 multifamily units, 47 townhomes, and 40 supportive units to get to the 370. Again, I think it's important just to understand that this was an iterative process. There were 34 different concept plans that were reviewed. It went back and forth between the developer and the borough. And in the event that residential wasn't happening on this site, it would have had to gone somewhere in the borough. In other words, this was a site that allowed for the development of 370 units. Had this property, single office user come in or a hotel user come in and occupied that building or redeveloped it with no residential, the 360 residential units would have to be located somewhere else within the borough. And what that means is that there would have been options or opportunities that developers would have sought properties closer to single-family residential neighborhoods, would have purchased multiple properties and built multifamily, either townhomes or apartments, albeit maybe not 370, but maybe smaller amounts, 30, 40, 50 units in multiple areas throughout the borough, which would have, from a planning perspective, been a far worse situation in terms of its impact to single-family residential neighborhoods. So what we worked towards was to figure out how we could put a right amount of residential, require the 20% in a way that limited the number of school-age kids by providing 40 supportive housing units, which would not generate any school-age kids, in an area where it wouldn't impact single-family residential neighborhoods, in an area where it had direct access to larger roads and highways. So in our opinion, the idea of putting this type of development here versus multiple smaller developments in other parts of the community was a far better final conclusion in terms of not impacting single-family neighborhoods. And so I think with that, I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of history of that, and I'll turn it over to Wendy if she has anything.
So I think it's important to illustrate the point that you made about where the development is going as opposed to single-family neighborhoods. So if you drive down Van Amberg, going down toward Washington Township, you go to the blinking light in Washington Township, and you cross that light, and toward the left, you see a development going in a single-family neighborhood. That's 40 units going in a single-family neighborhood, compared to an isolated project landlocked by BMW. To keep away this type of development from Blueberry, from Ackerman, from Centennial, from all of your neighborhoods. So this is why this project is important to keep and maintained. Now, I gave you the example of Englewood Cliffs and the developer's remedy lawsuit that they got stuck with 1,500 units. Park Ridge, you see for yourself what's going on over there. A lot of this stuff is mandated by state law. And I know Wendy has been involved in litigation concerning that. And Wendy's been here to protect our interest, to make sure that we meet our requirements to the best of our ability. So Wendy, I leave it up to you to explain when we say we changed the ordinance, we had the redevelopment, why do we have to do that?
Okay, so this is all something that we brought forth to the public in a public hearing back in June when we had our affordable housing planner here to explain the different ways that we were meeting our obligation. I believe that was posted online as well for those who weren't able to attend. The benefit of being proactive as the borough is doing in looking to the sites that we knew were going to be coming forth with new owners and potentially different uses is just as the mayor was alluding to, when you take the control of the conversation, you get to also be at the table deciding what is going to go here. As Fran had mentioned, there's been numerous drawings and concept plans that have come before us and before the borough committee that was meeting with the developers on and off and between the professionals. And part of that was continuing to discuss, move things. How do we keep getting that number down? Okay, now we're at a number. How do we get the 3-bedroom number down? Because we all know 3-bedroom units are more likely to have school children than 1 and 2 bedrooms. Let's talk about how we can help our supportive housing. As part of your affordable housing plan, there's certain what we call micro requirements, which are different numbers within the units that either have minimums or maximums. As Mr. Russo had pointed out, one of those is the UHAC requirements for income requirements and for bedroom sizes. And within each bedroom size, you have to have a certain percentage that splits between moderate and low income. And just to put it out there so everyone understands, moderate income is not low income that you're thinking of for affordable housing. These are units that are for your teachers, for nurses, for police officers. It goes up to 80% of median income. That's in your moderate range, 50 to 80%. Your low income is the 30 to 50%. It is not folks that are getting handouts. It's not Section 8. There's a minimum requirement and they won't actually meet that requirement to get into the unit. So it's a different program to meet that middle class need, so to speak, that there is no other federal subsidy for. In between there, we have a limit on how many supportive housing units you can have. There's a limit on percentages of senior housing, and then those are maximums. In between there, you also have minimums of family units. So this project is helping us meet a need for supportive housing, as well as helping us meet family rental, which are both, one is required and one is allowed up to a certain point in your plan. So it's creating great benefit as far as formulating an overall affordable housing plan for the borough.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. All right, at this point, I'm going to ask that you step up to the microphone one at a time, state your name, the town you're from, and we will take your questions and notes. We're going to limit it to 3 minutes. I'll ask Councilman Bonanno to keep the time. Oh, John?
Yes.
Okay. And once everybody's done asking the questions, then I'll direct the questions either to Fran, Wendy, Ed, or anybody up here on the board. So please step up.
Mayor,
Yeah.
you may want to introduce this because then we're going to have the hearing twice.
What's that?
You may want to introduce the ordinance.
Okay.
Open it for the public.
All right, so I have to, give me a second. I have to, my attorney is telling me that I have to introduce it, so that way we could open it up to public comment. Okay, resolution number 25232, resolution providing for a meeting not open, no, not the other one.
The ordinance.
The ordinance, I'm sorry. Public ordinance number 25-11, an ordinance of the Borough of Cliff Lake in Bergen County adopting block 601 Lot 1 redevelopment plan.
Motion.
Motion for open to the public for
Motion open.
Motion to open to the public.
Motion.
Is there a second? All in favor? Any opposed? None, motion passes. Okay, step right up.
I'll just so the public knows, I will be keeping track of time. When there's approximately 30 seconds left, I'll let you know. All
right, thanks.
And then the mayor will let you know to wrap
Thank
it
you.
up.
Thank you. I guess I'll be the one to break the ice. Thank you for putting this all together. Thank you for your service, and thank you for, and very nice turnout tonight. My name is Scott Pomagowski. I live at 89 Kinderkamak Road. I've been a resident for 10 years, over 10 years, since 2010, and I'm a disabled veteran. Just like to know a couple of things for your future consideration. You said it was four levels high. Do we have a fire truck that can reach that level, a ladder truck? And if not, what are the considerations in getting a ladder truck? Because they cost around $500,000 to $1 million, and it would be a waste of taxpayers' money for like paying that much money for one or two buildings. Okay. The other thing is, I know you have to turn in some things for the watershed and the water plan. What communication is going on? And I'm not sure where you're going to get your water from or where your water is going to go. And I don't know if anybody else knows. But what communication is Suez Water and Park Ridge Water? What communication are you having with them? And do they have any impact on this? And as far as just the second and third order kinetics, what influence does increase in population have on things like need for teachers and need for further police? And I know you said you were going to try to do more on that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Scott. Next.
Seen me many times, and I'm back again, Woodcliff Lake. And let me start off with, I've had the opportunity over several weeks to attend meetings. I've also had an opportunity to meet individually with members of the council. And I thank you very much for taking your time to meet with me. I met with the council president. We shared coffee together, and he was most helpful in discussing what is behind this. I want to say, first of all, with a smile on my face, that everything that the mayor has said is absolutely true. We got into a situation where it's necessary to put these plans into action now to avoid having developers come in and just ruin what our town is. Unfortunately, that was all mandated by the courts. And every town in Bergen County, and look around and tell me a town that isn't undergoing construction right now for development of units. Every town put it off until kind of the last minute. You got to get it done by January, and here we are in September. So there's not a lot of time to make any changes to things. What you're seeing is what you're going to get. It's a reasonable place that they're going to put together. It looks nice and everything else. But like everything else, I'll just say it goes back to, if anybody here remembers a person who was on radio by the name of Steve Harvey. Oh, I guess nobody's around. He had a famous saying that was, "And now for the rest of the story." And the rest of the story assumes that we are going to have expenses, we are going to have problems, we are going to have difficulties. The gentleman right before me already made some of those, and they're absolutely true. I will say that right now, there's a problem with water pressure over in Park Ridge because of their development, and we're going to be adding to that also. This is not all you're seeing. You're seeing part of the story. These people are here to talk to you about BMW, and they're doing a fine job, and they look fine.
30 seconds.
Excuse me?
30 seconds.
No. It all looks fine. Come on. They have had years to put this together. How many people here know about the plans and know the details of it? How many? Anybody? You've done a poor communication job, every single one of you. Poor. I know the mayor makes comments that go onto Facebook. I see them. But you have to think about what is the rest of the story. And the rest of the story is you got to worry about your fire. You got to worry about your police department. You think all of the people who are coming in here with all of their cars for all of these units are not going to have a problem getting in and out of that area?
Bert, this is the first of many meetings.
I understand that.
We
There's
hear you.
another one about finance next month. So if you have any questions about courts, forget about it. So I'm aware of that.
Thank you.
The other thing is, you are not aware of the fact that there is also a development that's going to be taking place over at the Hilton. These people are not here to talk about that. That's going to be added to the whole traffic. The two are roughly a mile apart from one another, and they're all coming in the same corridor over at Glen Road and Chestnut Ridge. The Broadway corridor, which has been under development and is coming along. Excuse me.
All right, Bert,
Do I have the lease here or what? I've already been told by Mr. Padilla that I may be thrown out of this.
Bert.
I really don't care because you have to hear the truth eventually.
Mr. Taylor, please address us because we can't hear what you're saying.
Well, I'll be more than happy to get it through. I have a voice almost equal to Mr. Padilla's. Just so you know, you've got additional developments that are going to be taking place, and this is only part of the story. You have a significant one that's going to be over at the Hilton Hotel. It was left empty for all of those years. They have a development. They're going to be coming in to almost the same area with units under the same situation. You also have the situation with the Broadway corridor. Two of them are under development right now.
Bert, hold on, Mr. Taylor. We have 100 people here. You've
I
had more
know
than
you
5
do.
minutes. I spent 2 hours with you the other day.
Okay.
Please let other people speak.
You certainly did. I
It's
have to make a
disrespectful
point,
to everybody who's
and
here who wants to be
I will
heard.
not stop until you let me
Mr. Challen, you
say
can-
that two things. Somebody here has to tell us what a pilot program is, why we have a pilot program, what's in it for us, what's going to happen with the financial constraints on that, which you're not going to talk about tonight, but it has to be done at some point in time.
We have our professionals here, and they are here to answer those questions, including what the definition of a pilot program is.
Well,
in terms of specifics,
people
we are
need to
not
know
going to get
that.
into that because there is no pilot program presently, but we are asking you to ask your questions now.
That's
And I
fine.
promise they will be answered, including what the
That's
definition
fine.
of a
I
pilot
will
program
come
is.
out of this.
Because I do
I
agree
have
there is a
put to-
big misconception about what it is and what
I
that
have
means. So
put
that will be
together a
answered.
plan of those things that need to be talked about with the public and be aware of, because we haven't had any. Behind me, I have 3 more people, each with their 3 minutes. And I ask if we can do this as a
Get them
team.
the time to come up and give them their 3 minutes.
That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you for providing this opportunity. I'm Nancy Wernikoff. I live at 42 Somerset Drive in Woodcliff Lake, right off of Glen Road. My concern is the amount of traffic that this will encounter. And in addition, what are the services that you're going to provide for these people? We have lived in Woodcliff Lake since 1967. Chestnut Ridge Road was a 2-lane highway. And now it's 6 lanes, really. What has happened to our community? I would like to continue to see it. I know it can't be the way it was, but I'm concerned about the way you're looking at it for the future. I am concerned about the facilities that you'll offer to the people that are moving in. They're going to need all kinds of services that we don't have here. If we don't have a lot of places to eat, we don't have a convenience store where Fusco's was, where at 10 o'clock at night, if you needed a loaf of bread, you could go there. I mean, this town has really changed. And I would like you to please keep all those things in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up goes the mic. Leslie Maltz, 1 Stratford Court, otherwise known as the New House, 16 years later. I want to bring up a couple things. I came here after living in a development of townhouses, 626 to be exact, Harmon Cove. And I moved here because of the way Woodcliff is or was. And now I'm getting the feeling that it's changing in a way that maybe I made the wrong decision. I don't see any caring going on for what's going to happen to our community. Paying $34,000 a year in taxes for the services we get is a little exorbitant. And I am hoping that as you figure out what all of this is going to take to do, it's not going to increase any of the existing residents. Having gone through that with Harmon Cove, the developer paid every single penny for every added service that was needed as they added to the community, whether it was a school, a fire truck, policeman, name it. Whatever is going to go on should be self-sustaining in terms of cost and not be a burden on the existing taxpayers who care. People are not here to live for a year or two. This is not rental property where I owned rental property. People lived for a couple months. They didn't care. Everybody in this room is here because they care. What I'm concerned about is when you start adding development like this, why are you not doing what Manhattan is doing? Taking excess office space and making it into residential. It's separate, as you're trying to keep things separate. Manhattan is doing that. Why are we not even considering that? It doesn't add up. Developers need to cover any additional costs and not be a burden on the existing residents. Otherwise, this will be the tipping point that turns us into something less than Woodcliff Lake. We all bought here because we knew that it was an upscale, desirable place to be.
30 seconds.
I'll make it in 30 seconds. What we want to make sure is that you see the numbers that turned out on short notice. It's because we care. And we will continue to care. And we hope that you take that into consideration. You are the ones who have to get reelected. You are the ones who will generate the tax bills. And I sure as hell don't want to be the one that gets to the point that I say, I'm going back to where I came from. This is not the Woodcliff Lake that I bargained for.
Hi, Alex Couto, 18 Crestfield Court. Thank you for all the service you guys do for the town. Much appreciated. I have a couple of quick questions. I didn't hear your presentation clearly. So I have a question. From Chestnut Ridge, when you look to the big building where there is parking garage underneath, what floor do you see at the same level? The first floor, the second, or? Okay. Okay, so if you can make note of that, the question is, from Chestnut Ridge, what floor do you see? Okay. The other thing I didn't hear you clearly is, what did you expect the valuation to be of the development and the yearly taxes? Okay, you mentioned a number, but I was right in the front. I didn't hear it. Sorry. I wanted to say was I didn't hear him clearly, the presentation, what is the expected valuation of the property and the yearly taxes they'll be paying. Okay, so that's the second question I have. The third question, you mentioned that the residents qualify for affordable housing. Residents of where? The county, the state? Where do they have to be residents of where to qualify? The other questions, I didn't see any stores on the representation on the main building. Are there any stores or is all residential? Okay. Now, this is towards the council. We're gonna, if this goes through, we're gonna have an expected increase in the number of residents. So likely there'll be an expected increase in police, fire, DPW. So I would like you please take note that might have additional costs that might not be visible up front. And my hope is, like the previous speaker is, that the residents don't have to carry an additional burden, financial burdens for this development. Would like it to be successful, everybody to go ahead, but no additional financial burdens. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Alvin Starr. We've been living in town at 209 Glen Road for 40 years, a little over 40 years. One thing about this project is that you have very significant deviations from the existing conditions. And with such deviations that requires a lot of detail. And one of the, looking at the site plan, one of the first things you don't see is any topography. On the north side, a lot of topographic relief and the issues, certainly dealing with stormwater management, which is going to be a very, very, very major issue. You know, managing it, you minimize the stormwater runoff. Who's going to regulate it? To what point is it going to be regulated? How do you prevent erosion? Do you put up retaining walls, ugly retaining walls? Nobody wants to see in a plain view. As you look at the Garden State Parkway ramp, you're looking at a retaining wall because you're putting a tennis court or something, a pickleball court right over there, and it's a steep slope. So, you know, you really have to get into, that's one of the speakers said, get into the weeds about the presentation of this, and stormwater management is going to be a big issue. All the runoff goes into Bear Brook, down Bear Brook, and you can see the scour damage on the Bear Brook Ridge. You don't need more damage from future runoff going all the way down there. You know, the site is very permeable right now, and you're going from extreme permeability to extreme impermeability. And that has to be managed, which is a big deal. And I hope at some point when we go through detailed design, or at some point before detailed design, the chief engineer of the Turnpike Authority takes a look at this, because they have purview here, and the water's going to run off right in their, not only the right of way, but on their property. Another issue is traffic increases in Glen Road, traffic studies. It shouldn't be just Chestnut Ridge Road and Glen Road right at the intersection. We live on Glen Road. We live in the Glen Road. There used to be an Indian trail. There's no center divider. Two cars could barely go by at the same time. and you're going to have more traffic there. You have to really look at our section of Glen Road, not just at Glen Road at the intersection. You have Woodcliff Avenue. You got schools over there. You have to look at the impacts on traffic. Traffic is really a big deal. And I would say that the traffic studies have to look at these roads going into where you get a bus, where you get a train to New York. What are the impacts going to be? It's not just what you have at the site, but how it affects everybody living in the neighborhood, including kids going to school. And on Glen Road, we live, people walk. We walk. You walk your dog. There's no sidewalks. You know, you hear the police tearing up, going up to the ridge with their fire, the police with their alarms going, with the flashing lights going. How much more of this do you need? How much more of this can we take? And these are significant issues. You have issues of emergency services, EMS, fire, police. Are they going to come tearing up the Glen Road more often? Do you put a substation here with the fire department up here, a substation, a station, a police up here, EMS up here? You really have to look at all these things. Okay, wrap it up. I'll say you also have to look at cumulative effects, not only of this project, but the Hilton, other projects, the town, the borough really has to look at what is going on in town, putting a picture together, and not looking at every one project in its own piecemeal. Thank you.
Good evening. Richard Jagarjan, 34 Stonewall Court, Woodcliff Lake. Of course, Woodcliff Lake. Anyway, 28 years in Woodcliff Lake. I will say that I would maybe rethink coming to Woodcliff Lake today if I was looking for a place to live, if these projects and over what's going on possibly at the Hilton could be coming up. But that being said, just a couple statements I want to make. And by the way, we love this town. I mean, we've loved this town for 28 years. Our kids had probably the best education they ever got. And that's the reason why we came to Woodcliff Lake, for the education system and the community that Woodcliff Lake was. And we don't want to, I don't think anyone here wants to see that change dramatically. Do we have change? Of course we do. It's 28 years. But we don't, this is a dramatic change. And there's a lot of things that we all should be considering, right? So this is just one little note that I want to bring up regarding the supportive housing. So in New Jersey, supportive housing, which is part of this project, I believe, is for people with special needs, including those who are homeless, have mental health or development disabilities, are elderly, have physical disabilities, including HIV and AIDS, or are youth aging out of foster care, or the juvenile justice system, and ex-offenders re-entering the community. This housing provides affordable, permanent homes with access to services like case management, job training, and healthcare, promoting independent living within communities. So this is what we're inviting into this beautiful, quiet hamlet of Woodcliff Lake. And besides that, you have, a lot of these people probably aren't maybe having cars. They're going to be walking. We know there's no sidewalks around here, just like what they're doing over in Saddle River right off of 17th. The people who are going to be living there, a lot of them are going to be walking. Where are they walking? There's no sidewalks. There's Route 17. So, and, being forced to be doing, putting the square peg into a round hole in all these cities, in my opinion, is insane. I wish someone had the guts to go against this Mount Laurel project and all these things that has been since the 70s or 80s, or I think the 70s. I wish someone would just stop this craziness and let the towns be the towns that they are. You got beautiful towns. Saddle River, look what they're doing to Saddle River, Alpine, all these towns. It's nuts. I mean, so in the biggest issue, the reason for a lot of this is being done is not to have these people live in these communities, is for them to get their kids to have better education, right? A lot of it's to have the kids have a better place to grow up. So why don't you fix the education system in the towns like Patterson or Camden or all these bad towns? That's the answer, not putting them in the towns where we have that's going to lower our value of our properties. That's it. Did I do another 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Still have 7 seconds.
Good evening, Josephine Higgins, 10 Pond Road, Woodcliff Lake. I'd just like to talk to the area that I know a lot about. Yesterday was my 51st year anniversary of being on the ambulance corps. Thank you. I didn't do it to get, we're all volunteer, but people around us, I just was visiting my daughter over in Rivervale. Rivervale can't get their ambulance out. All various areas have problems getting their ambulance out. We would like to stay volunteer, but we need the roads to be managed. We bond for a lot of our roads. I would like to know how much you're willing to put into our road system, because there'll be a lot of traffic going in and out as you do the building, and that's going to destroy our roads even more. And we really have a problem with them. And I won't even talk about the railroad tracks. So, housing for special needs, 40 people, that I can tell you that will increase our ambulance calls, because when Park Ridge, Sulak Lane went in with the special needs there, we saw it go up. When the Thrive opened up, it started to go up, and it continues to go up. And we have nothing against it, but you know what? The road systems are really hard getting in and out now, and they have to be looked at very, very carefully. And I just hope we can keep the volunteer, because now when I'm on duty, I used to be able to drive down. I have to stay at the building because the traffic is so bad from my house to the ambulance building that I can't get down there in adequate time that I feel would take care of the patient. So I wish you would look at the people that'll be there with special needs, and the road system especially. Thank you very much for your time.
Tom, before you go, I apologize. I want to clarify something, because I think it's really important that I want to make sure everybody is understanding. Supportive housing does not include people with addictions, mental health, or people who have domestic issues such as domestic violence or runaways. Supportive housing, and I'm going to read the definition so that everybody hears it, because I don't want anybody to walk out of here thinking that supportive housing represents one thing when it does not. Supportive housing, and this is the definition of what is permitted by the state, is regulated by the Department of Developmental Disabilities and is a type of affordable housing that provides support services for people with different special needs, such as people with physical development or learning disabilities, or people with chronic illness that need help managing their diet or medicine properly. The vast majority of these residents are people, as one operator has aptly described it, would be more dangerous. Society is more dangerous to them than they are to society. This type of housing helps these residents access better health care or assist them in continuing living in their home community, and generally the aim is to help these residents live a more stable, productive, and independent life. When you talk about the mental health portion of it, domestic violence portion of it, the addiction portion of it, that is what is typically referred to as transitional housing. This is not transitional housing. This is supportive housing. So I just want to clarify that for the record so everybody understands that. Thank you.
Fran, if you could make sure that Clarice has that link tomorrow so we could also post it with the presentation, because it's important that everyone has the correct information. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Lauren McKinley. I live over on Blueberry in Wycliffe Lake. I have lived here for 38 years. I moved back here from living in a condo, kind of like this in Tenafly. Clearly didn't like it, wanted to move back here. So as you can imagine, I'm not a huge fan of this, but I digress. My question for you, you mentioned that 20%, there's been a 20% decrease in students in the school. Can our schools actually handle 20% more children coming in? And I know you say you're not going to have that many, but let's be honest, you have no idea. You have a lot of 3-bedroom houses. You have a lot of 2-bedroom condos. You see people pack them in. I've seen it. I lived in Tenafly. I know what it's like. So what are you going to do to help keep our class sizes small, not make our children learn in trailers while you are building extensions on our school to house all of these kids? I've been in that school. I know that there aren't any empty classes. They're working with a 2nd grade right now that has 5 classes instead of 4. We can't house that in our school right now for every other grade. So what is your plan? And I know you're going to say, well, we'll see what happens when people come in. No, there has to be a plan in place for our children because that's why we moved here. I moved here so that my children are in a classroom of 20 or less, not of 27 with an aide. That is not why we are here. So we're asking you as the parents to come up with a plan proactively for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stacy Lazar. I live at 113 Kenwood Drive. I definitely appreciate all the work that you guys have been doing for the town. It's clear that affordable housing is a requirement by the state, and that this is not something we are voluntarily undergoing, but it's something that we are required to do. Totally understand that, and thank you for educating us all. However, what I feel was a little bit upsetting is that many of us, including myself, did not know about this project that's underway until just the past week or so. So I think that was a little bit upsetting, and I would have liked to have known sooner. But I'd like to be involved at this point and understand, you know, what are the things that the town is doing to meet this requirement. So I guess what I wanted to know, a few things are, what are the affordable housing families paying per month for their units? Like, I'm trying to understand what is the household income of the affordable housing families? And to our last speaker's point, how many students can we expect to be added to the school as a result? If we can have like an approximation. And then when it comes to supportive housing, how many students do we expect from that group is going to be going to the school district? How will this plan impact individual taxpayers and the amount that we pay? And then how can we expect this to impact our home values? Just really a lot of general questions that, you know, if we can generally try to address, I'm sure we all have those same questions. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting us come in. My name is Raj Sengoy. I'm a Woodcliff Lake resident for 26 years and still going strong. And my question is to you, the gentleman in the middle. Maybe I misread you or misheard you. My question is, you said one property will give us 1.5 million tax.
You're going to answer the question when the public is done.
And my question is still confusing that you said we will get property tax of $1.5 million per property. So are we talking about the 40 condominiums or you're talking of 300 and 407 units?
The $1.5 million per year in taxes that I was referring to is what the taxes are currently for the property. So the office building that's on the property today and the parking deck that's there and the land generate around $1.5 million a year in property taxes.
This is the office building we are talking. That gives us.
That's there today.
That's pretty low. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Alicia Gibson. I'm on Stacy Lane. Quick question. I'm just having some difficulty reconciling affordable housing and this whole positioning around this is a need for affordable housing. And then we're talking about 40 units supportive. Then we've got a few more units that are affordable. So what is all the rest of this? I mean, last I heard they don't need like water features and specialty parks. I'm just trying to figure out like affordable housing is affordable housing. This does not seem like affordable housing. This seems like luxury housing. That's it.
Hi, Laura Jeffers, Kenwood Drive. Thanks for having us all here tonight so we can see what's going on in town. I think I'm pretty well versed in affordable housing, builder rent remedy lawsuits, pilot programs, and the affordable housing legislation that our wonderful governor signed into place that put us further into this hole than we already are. And everybody needs to keep that in mind in November. So anyway, I know you can't get political, but I certainly can. So anyway, there's a couple of concerns that I have here and some questions at the same time. Is this area in need of redevelopment? Have we determined that already? Another question is, you mentioned tax. Will you be looking for a pilot program on this particular project? And has that been put in place already? What's that? Okay, yeah, that's fine. I think it's going to create a tremendous amount of light pollution. It's almost like putting the Garden State Plaza next to BMW with the number of buildings and the parking lots and everything else. Another question I have is, why did we not join in with Montvale and the mayor in Montvale at the lawsuit against the state? And, do we have any kind of rent control that we're going to look at to put in place for Woodcliff Lake? And why are we addressing this one little area at a time? If we have to put in 360 units, why don't we, and this is going to give us, 74? That's still another 300 units that we need. Why don't we do something like Saddle River did, and we just build an affordable housing complex that will address more than, just a little piece here and a little piece here and a little piece here, until we have an entire town of these kind of complexes, because that's what's going to happen, I would think, when they go to develop the Hilton as well, and we still won't meet our numbers. So those are my questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Before I start, I just want to thank the mayor and council for the dedicated service to the borough. I have a couple of questions that I just want to put on record. When will these?
Your name and town.
Oh, I'm sorry. Name is Ulysses Cabrera, 14 Dorchester Road. When will the answers to these questions be submitted? Is this online? Is this after the meeting?
After the conclusion of the public portion, as many of the questions that can be answered here tonight will be answered.
Okay, great. Thank you. One of my question is, after the development is done, that the proposed development, what is the percentage that's going to be open space? Question, the 1.5 million, I think this was asked, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. That's currently there. The taxes being paid by BMW at 300 Chestnut Ridge. What exactly is going to be the value of this proposed development, and what are the ratables for that annually? Because during the presentation, there was a lot of numbers thrown out there, 50, 70 million, but that was some aggregate number there, but I wasn't sure. The other question I have, there's 40 special needs units that are going to be assigned additionally to the 34 units that are affordable housing. So that would put us at 74 out of the 307 units that were required by the state. Is that correct? That's my question. My other question is, for the special needs, let's say if we don't fulfill the 40 special needs units, are we just stuck with the 34? Retention basin, I can't answer. That's a planning board question. The comparison here by the traffic, by the developer here, when you mentioned there was ins and outs of the traffic will be the same as the employees that were there. I don't think that's a good example, because the employees that were there were exiting from the same entrance that they came in, the entrance on Chestnut Ridge. You're proposing to put two more entrances, one on Chestnut and the other one on Glen Road. That's going to create a lot more traffic. So my point is that it's 9 to 5 traffic when you work there. I used to work there. And you're talking about something that's going to be open 24/7, because you have people living there, the restaurants and retail and all that. So the traffic is not comparable, in my opinion. That's all I have, but thank you very much.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Gabe Miani, 23 Reeds Lane. Been here for 9 years. Licensed professional engineer, specializing in civil, structural. I missed the beginning of the presentation, so if I got anything here that's redundant, I apologize. So the first thing, echoing one of the earlier comments, intelligent development, project planning, the planning of the town for the next 20, 30 years. Has that been tackled? We've referenced Hilton development. We've referenced Broadway corridor and this. And how that ties into all the other things that have been brought up already, right? Cost to our EMT, cost to our fire department, development of the school, capacity of the school. I'd be very interested in seeing what that long-range program looks like. Number two, stormwater. Looking at the current plan, there's an exceptional amount of impervious coverage on here and not a whole lot of impervious coverage. I'd be very interested in seeing how far the stormwater management plan has been developed for this site. I imagine that a lot of it is underground detention basins, and I'd like to see what the geology is in the area to see what the percolation rates are for. Traffic studies, I'm imagining at this point there's been at least preliminary traffic studies, but I'm very interested in seeing what those traffic studies look like. I believe there's actually going to be 3 entrances in and out of the site. Only one, I believe, is existing on Chestnut Ridge and one on Glen. Is there an anticipation for any other lighted intersections along any of those new entrances? Utilities. There's a major mandate currently on EV development, and I'd be interested to see what the conversations have been with PSE&G in the area for the loads that are going to be expected on the site. Water, Veolia or Park Ridge Water, and what the capacities are there. Sanitary. This is a major effluent coming out of this site, and I would like to see what that looks like. And then water. Oh, gas. Is there going to be a plan for gas, or is this going to go all electric like everything else seems to be going? And again, now an increased demand on PSE&G. And are they going to be able to meet this without substations and things like that that are going to be necessary for that?
30 seconds.
It's already been brought up. I'm interested to see where we land with our affordable mandate. How this impacts our school capacity, and what the long-term plan is for that, and the cost for the other services. Yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Jeff Levin, 10 Wright Street North. There's been a number of references to the Hilton property. It sounds like this present proposal will accomplish the phase 4 affordable housing for the borough for the current plan. If that's the case, are we going to be back here again, a year from now, having a different developer with doing another development plan for the Hilton property? Or is it something that we'll be able to treat differently? Thank you.
Joan Herman, 17 Berkshire Road. My big concern, one of my concerns, the entrance to the Garden State Parkway is a major thoroughfare. And if I understand your proposal correctly, there is going to be an entrance into this complex on Glen Road, which was going to be it's got to be before the entrance to the Parkway. Am I right? So then the traffic situation and the potential for accidents there, I envision it. 5 o'clock at night, everyone's trying to get back on that parkway. You watch it now, it's crazy. So how can you enter into that building to go into the restaurants and the people who live there? You're looking for a lot of trouble there. That's the other concern. Getting back to the Hilton thing. I know, Mayor Render, you mentioned about splitting the population for the affordable housing, and I honestly think it should be split up a little bit more. It would be less massive at this point if we could split it up. And I think it's something really to consider. Maybe there's other opportunities where it can be spread out. And then this project does not have to be so large. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Huang at 27 Mulholland Drive, Woodcliff Lake. I just want to say that my kids just graduated from high school, and I'm coming to represent that aspect. And we've been living there for over 18 years. And we thank you, Mayor and Council, for your hard work in putting this together, because this is definitely not something that was just quickly put together. So we appreciate the presentations. And many of our local and high school board members are here, so we are ready to work in cooperation with you so that we have enough in our facilities in the schools so that we can have proper instructions for everybody. Thank you very much.
Nancy Gross, Woodcliff Lake. You spoke earlier about working with the developers in the design. So my question is to the aspect of green space, and not green space, but really the green team and the efforts to be mindful about environmental effects. I know that our town has a mandate to make sure that we're doing that. And the question is in regard to the water feature and how that falls in line with that. It doesn't seem like it would be really environmentally friendly, although lovely, looks nice, calling, but it doesn't seem to be really answering to what we had mandated a long time ago to assure that we'd be looking out for that. And the other thing is the consideration that another woman had mentioned before about the decline in the rates of students attending the school. Having had my kids gone through the school, but I experienced a lot of those, it would seem from those numbers that there's space available, but having lived through it, lots of things have changed beyond that actually call for a greater need. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. And I'm going to call on the mayor and ask that you take advantage of the opportunities to tour the school that have been provided you, and ask that you actually take advantage of that, go tour the schools, talk to the superintendent, and see the situation for yourself.
Miriam Mandelman. I also live on Blueberry Drive. I have various things to speak to, but I'll be quick. I know you had commented that affordable housing referred to the teacher, the educator, the firefighter. But when I just quickly looked up, a three-person, it ranges income from $32,000 up to $108,000 is listed by the state as what they consider affordable housing for a family of three. So that's a big range. You're looking at all the way down to $32,000. You talked about the supportive housing, that it's not mental health, that it's for physical, for medical issues, where there'll be 24/7 medical staff on hand at all times, because what that's going to do to our resources, I know that if I need help, I can call and someone will be there quickly, but now you're adding a population that is going to have a greater need than the rest of the community. And lastly, to speak to the schools, again, I'm going to echo other people's concerns. I moved here for the district, for this exceptional school system and the community of Woodcliff Lake, which has been very welcoming to me, as I have not grown up in Woodcliff Lake. And my kids are already in a class of 18, 19 at 5 years old. That's really going to have an impact. I know the school said they can fit up to 24 5-year-olds with one teacher. That's going to significantly impact our kids' learning. It's going to change our state scores. People will not be flocking to Woodcliff Lake to get this incredible school system that I fell in love with. I agree. I think you should tour the facility. We don't even have clubs. I asked about a book club. The town doesn't have a library. There are many resources we don't have, and now we're going to be stretched even more. So I think there's a lot of things we could look at. I don't know if there's a deadline to put in this housing, if this is something we're racing to do now. I'm also not sure how many units you're looking at one facility here, and now again we'll be back, and I'm not sure how many weeks to discuss the other property. How many units are we looking at? I know Saddle River just opened up their units, and they are already seeing difficulties in the school. Their resources are already becoming stretched, and people are already discussing moving out. I would hate to see that happen to a community I've only lived in for about 5 years and fell in love with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Lundgren, 33 Woodcrest Drive, formerly 6 Ackerman Ave. I chose to move within the town. Many of the points that have already been raised around infrastructure and civil services, all of the things that make our town beautiful and a wonderful place to live. I just wanted to add one other component around rebalancing the whole town for community use spaces like recreational fields. We look at the camps that are run out of the old mill, our ball fields, our beautiful new park. I think people have been making the point around a master plan or holistic development that not only ensures that we have essential services, but also community spaces, quality of life. I ran the Girl Scouts for several years. I have Scout parents here, and we couldn't have our meetings here. So just making sure that that continues to be contemplated around the whole town. Thank you so much.
Hi, Etta Littroff, 52 Woodcrest Drive, and I really do want to thank everybody. I know how diligent and I know how hard you work. I kind of remember Centennial that you brought that up. It's actually a very bad memory for me. I hate to say it, because we were fortunate enough at that time to be able to sell off a considerable amount of our housing, our affordable housing. What we didn't foresee at the time, and what I am concerned about, is there was one child with very severe, he was a paraplegic child. It had the impact on our school system of $275,000 a year. What that created was a deficit in our taxes. We didn't get that money from New Jersey. Is there any support system that New Jersey is mandating this on that? If we fall into this situation again, our taxes don't have to be raised to support this one family who I may seem very unsympathetic towards, but I grew up in the Bronx and I worked very hard to get here. So from that point of view, what happens when that situation arises? Because you don't know what's going to be really moving, and in the end, that's my concern. Thank you for hearing me out.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to, as residents, if there's anything that we can do to stop this type of forced development? While the project is beautiful, and I'm sure it's a large investment for you guys, I'm sure that it's going to be a beautiful project. As some of them stated, we only wind up with a small number of affordable units, but that's what makes it physically possible. The state is mandating this for us. What do we do as residents to try to assist you guys and give you guys the tools to not have this forced down our throats, basically? If there's any way to do some research, I know, I think Laura had mentioned, there's 27 other towns in the state that have fought against this type of development, but I don't think that went anywhere. I don't know if there's anything else that we can do as residents, but we'd love to hear it.
Hello, Randy Miller, 1 Berkshire Road, Woodcliff Lake. Been a resident for almost 30 years. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I really do think everything looks nice, and I do understand that it will be a little while before we get details. But I was wondering if you could maybe explain in more detail how a pilot program works, how the revenue streams come in. Do we have to subsidize some portion before we start seeing any revenues generated, if there's a timing difference between what we get and what we have to put out for the schools? Also, given the size of this, plus the other developments that are being anticipated and considered, will we have to move from volunteer services to paid EMTs and, fire in order to support the increase in the population and the corporate revenue, corporate residents that will be coming in? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I will not need all 3 minutes. My name is Scott Cohen, 18 years in town, 12 Douglas Terrace. Quick question for Ed. You had mentioned 1/3 of the assessed value of the BMW parcel is where you were basing your numbers. Just curious if that's the same portion of the assessment value that the Hilton project also will be using for their numbers and for our income. And just in thinking about traffic, would a right turn off of 171 help? Just throwing that out. I see Mayor Rendo. I'm getting a no, but figured I'd ask. Thank you.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah.
Richard Jagarjan, part two. Part two, just for 30 seconds. I just want to talk about the entrance to, I noticed that you're looking for an entrance on Glen Road. And I can tell you right now, that won't work. Anyone that goes down that road, the two left lanes off of Chestnut Ridge, the far left lane, they constantly go over to the right lane multiple times. And in that short amount of time, you're going to have accidents. All you have to do is put a camera up there just for one day, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. That entrance won't happen. But this egress, ingress to this property, I can't see it happening with all these, between all the things that are going on there. So that's it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, okay, motion to close to the public?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? None? Motion passes.
Mayor, I wrote down all the questions, Mayor. If you want, I can go through them.
Sure.
Wrote them down too, and I think. Okay, but I think it's better if I do it this way. Okay, so one of the questions dealt with whether a fire truck would have to be purchased because it's a 4-level building. Any plan, again, many of your questions that dealt with the site cannot be answered tonight because that detail is not going to be provided until they go to the planning board for site plan approval. At the planning board meeting, all the questions dealing with traffic, the student impact, the roads, the improvements that have to be made, all those questions will have to be answered when they present their application to the planning board. And not only will their experts have to answer those questions, but the board has their own experts to review those answers and to advise the board as to whether they agree or disagree with the testimony being presented by the applicant, so that the residents of the community are fully represented and that there will be experts at those hearings on their behalf to question the testimony dealing with many of the site questions that were answered here tonight. With respect to fire issues, when the plan is presented to the board, the fire department reviews the plan, the building department in terms of fire safety reviews the plan. But typically in every town, there's mutual aid, and any type of fire that involves a structure usually results in all the surrounding towns surrounding to the fire. So,
although John, before, I think this is a question that we can answer, so I'd rather not leave it in doubt. I think the maximum height provided in the development plan is, I think, 50 feet. We do have a 50-foot ladder truck.
95-foot ladder truck.
95-foot ladder truck, so, that can be serviced by the fire department.
Okay, next, with respect to a watershed plan, again, that will be presented at the board, but just so the public is aware, any cost involved with the utilities has to be 100% paid for by the developer. That's not passed on to the taxpayers. They have to figure out how to get the utilities to the site, and they have to pay for the cost of whatever infrastructure is involved to connect to get those services. Now, there was a question about the pilot program. Wendy, if you could give a brief explanation as to what is involved with respect to a pilot program?
Okay,
Or
sure.
I don't know if that's for Fran, but either one of you.
I'm sure we can tag team it. So just by basic definition, pilot means payment in lieu of taxes. What would happen, or there's something called the long-term tax exemption law, which allows a pilot to be given when you have an area in need of redevelopment. Just globally speaking, what it is instead of collecting taxes the way your regular real estate taxes are, where a portion goes to the municipality, a portion goes to your local school district, a portion goes to the regional school district, and a portion goes to the county, 95 cents of every dollar that's collected goes to the borough instead. 5% goes to the county. So that's why it's called a payment in lieu of taxes. It's generally calculated based on a percentage of revenues versus assessed value, or it can be done in some cases when you have condo ownership, whatnot, based on assessed value. I am certainly not prepared to talk anything specific to this particular project because that would be done before the public again with another ordinance. That is how a financial agreement, which is what sets forth the payment in lieu of taxes, it comes through a financial agreement. That is required to be adopted by ordinance, and that would come before everybody once again. I do believe that there is the intention, if and when this is to come before the public, that there will be a presentation more specific as to what that particular pilot would entail, what the percentages of revenue would be, what are anticipated, et cetera. That would all be coming in the future. But as a basic high level of what is a pilot, what does pilot mean? The payment in lieu of taxes is a different form of collection where the municipality keeps 95% of it instead of a small percentage as you receive now.
Wait,
So,
we
with
have
all
to
due
get- we have to get
respect,
through-
you
we have to
can't
get through the
speak
questions.
without the mic, so let me just get through this first. As far as the way school taxes are done and the ways that the school budget is done, the school determines its budget based on their rules and regulation of what they're allowed to increase annually by. The 2% increase is the same as the municipality is capped on their appropriations based on revenues and all this other mumbo jumbo that the CFO can talk to better than I can. The schools have their methodology of, by statute and regulation, of how they're allowed to calculate their budget. Whatever the school budget is, the borough collects taxes and writes the check for that number. The pilot does not impact what that number is. The pilot is just a different way of collection of monies to the borough. Whatever the school's budget is, the borough has to write that check. So it's a little bit confusing because we're not collecting a percentage of that dollar for the school, but yet the school's still getting whatever their budget amount is out of the regularly collected taxes. What does create a benefit, however, is perhaps if a greater percentage of that dollar of real estate taxes is going to the school, the municipality also has the opportunity for a whole other coffer of outside of your assessed tax dollars to be able to provide funding for roads instead of going out for a capital bond. Those types of things can come out of that bucket of money versus the traditional tax collection bucket of money. But at the end of the day, everybody is going to get what they need.
Wendy, also, other than what's already presently being done by the municipality, is there anything else that you're aware of that can be done to legally stop any affordable housing development in the community? And have there been attempts in the past, and have they had any success?
That's a loaded question. So, strategically, and I do want to address this if I can a little more holistically to cover some of the other questions that were raised. There's a lot of questions about why are we coming with one piece of the puzzle tonight instead of the whole puzzle. The whole puzzle was presented in June. Anybody that doesn't know what's in the borough's plan, the borough's plan is posted on the website. It's called the Housing Element and Fair Share Plan. To bring it into a broader context of people asking about master planning, it is one element out of the borough's master plan, which is a planning document. And that was done with, generally a hearing is required at the land use board in their planning board capacity level. But in June, we went ahead and did a joint meeting of both the borough council and the land use board acting as a planning board, because the housing element fair share plan is one element of the master plan that actually has to get endorsed by resolution of the governing body of the council. So that's why it was done in one meeting. However, the borough is mandated by state law to have a master plan, and they're mandated to look at that master plan every 10 years. Similarly now, the housing element and fair share plan must be adopted by this new statute that was signed into law by Governor Murphy on every 5-year cycle, right? So 2025, we had a mandate that we had to adopt something by June 30th. In 2035, it's going to be that June 30th deadline once again. That is on a 10-year cycle. So all of these questions about looking at the borough holistically and just, there was another question about pocket parks or different areas of recreational space. That's also looked at the master plan level. And there's also an open space element that's in that master plan. So the borough is actively doing this on 10-year cycles. At a minimum, and you're always allowed to do it more frequently. So the Hilton, this BMW site, all of these sites were put forth as the borough's plan in the June document that was adopted here. It was a Monday night. I can't remember the date, forgive me, but it was in June. With regard to, what was the next part of the question?
Whether or not any
to
community has
fight
been
it.
successful in
Right.
stopping,
So there's been some questions about the 74 units of the BMW site and the fact that the borough's obligation right now is 360 units. So we do have limited spaces, which is why we're required to look also at properties that are prime for redevelopment, because we don't have enough open space otherwise. When you do that, it's called a vacant land analysis. And from the vacant land analysis, you look at every acre that is available. You're at a minimum have to calculate 6 units to the acre, 20% set aside. That 20% becomes what the borough's realistic development potential is. So the borough's plan does not anticipate hitting all 360. It anticipates hitting the realistic development potential plus the 25% that is mandated in the law above that. That's why the numbers are not going to add up to 360 affordable housing units in this plan. That will move forward as our unmet need. However, because we have that unmet need, we have to continue to look every time land becomes available to see whether or not it is appropriate and is being brought forth and promoted to the borough as a potential site for inclusionary or 100% affordable housing. You can try to fight this back, which the borough took the position of, instead of joining in a litigation that to that point people had put money into, but at no step in this litigation have the municipalities gotten a real win. And additionally, the state is essentially dragging its feet in the litigation, in my opinion, to make sure that everybody has to comply with all these deadlines or lose their immunity in the process. So even the towns that are part of the litigation are going through this process to develop plans that they feel are appropriate, because if you don't meet these deadlines, then you lose your immunity from these developer lawsuits. So I have seen towns like Woodcliff Lake that we've been able to negotiate our number down to say that the state was wrong in their calculation. But as far as to say that we have no obligation, I have yet to see any municipality in the state over the last 2 rounds that I've been here that have been able to say we're not doing this.
And-
the only thing you could do is not participate and leave yourself open to a challenge.
and 2 Bergen County communities that did attempt, whether it's probably more, but Englewood Cliffs not only lost their immunity, but they lost their ability to even determine the number of units because it was taken over by the courts, and they had to spend a couple of $1 million in legal fees,
Correct.
and they had to pay the legal fees
For the other side.
I
believe around $7 million.
$7 million.
Yes.
And Park Ridge, which spent over $1.5 million fighting the James development, which is on their main street, not the James, the affordable housing site in Sassoni.
Right.
Not only did they wind up being unsuccessful, but the developer wound up with more units than he initially wanted to put at the site as a result of the litigation.
And that's pretty common. And the other 2 I would point out is during round 3, when we didn't have the legislation, but the court mandated it, you had Princeton and South Brunswick in central Jersey who went to trial on their number and then had to basically raise taxes to cover their litigation costs and still had to comply with a number.
And Wendy, I know this is, I guess, more of a softball, I think, if you have the information, but somebody asked a question about what the qualifications are in
Yes,
Bergen
actually.
County. Okay.
So thankfully, we do have our plan online, and it's included in the housing element and fair share plan. So when you look, there will be a chart. As far as, and remember I said there's different buckets. There's 50% moderate income and then 50% low, very low. Just to break it down further, 13% is the very low income. And that is what the one resident was alluding to, that was a 3-person household would have been just under $34,500. That is 13% of the units have to accommodate that very low income. On a 3-person household, a moderate income would be $91,600. And that low income, which is the 30 to 50%, allows you an income up to $57,250. I like to personally use the four-person incomes because I think that's more indicative of a full family that can benefit from these. And on a four-person income, moderate income would be at 101,000 plus, just under $102,000 of a family household.
And this side, I know it was presented, but I think maybe it was missed. So this side is for both affordable and luxury units, correct?
So, well, I don't know about luxury. We'll see what goes there, but it is what's called an inclusionary site, which has market rate units as well as affordable units. And I could go into the weeds on where that came from on the inclusionary and why 20% and whatnot, but essentially that's what the market rate units is what's supposed to entice the developers to provide a loss on their revenue for the 20% set aside. And the reason this looks like a luxury building is because we really want the affordable housing units to blend seamlessly into the community where nobody knows where they are. They look just like everything else. And that's why they get the benefit of looking like the nicer units that are more indicative of a community like Woodcliff Lake.
And this is all residential, there's no retail proposed on the site?
On this particular application, there is the opportunity, there is a section that would be retail. I'll let Fran talk to
Okay.
that one.
Yes, Fran, there were several questions that I think that you could answer from a planner's perspective.
Before I move off, there was one question that I wanted to be able to address on supportive housing. A resident had asked what students are going to be generated out of that. There's none. There's no school-age children coming out of the supportive housing.
Yeah, so
Because it's people
because
that
it's
are living-
supportive, they're adults. They're not. It's not a child-based supportive housing. Is not for children. It's for adults in need with those needs. So I'm just going to walk through a few of the planning questions that were asked. We answered the question. I have 26 individuals that spoke. I have about 24 people who asked questions. I'm going to try to go through some of the planning related. We answered the question regarding the fire truck. The borough has the capability. There's a number of people made comments about not wanting to impact community facilities, not wanting for residents to pay for additional teachers and fire and police that may or may not occur. I can tell you that everybody sitting on that dais doesn't want to impact any of the existing residential neighborhood either. Like that has been a clear piece of it. If and when a financial agreement comes about as part of this process, the details of that will be put into place where the public will be able to see what exactly is being proposed from a financial standpoint and be able to answer those questions regarding the fact that the goal here from everybody's side is not to have existing single-family residential or townhome owners have to pay more because of a development like this. That has been a mandate from our perspective from the beginning. There was a question regarding why not take excess office space and convert it to residential. The issue here in that the office spaces in Woodcliff Lake are significantly wider than a residential building would allow for the conversion. So an office building, a residential building of this type would be a maximum 70 feet wide. The existing office buildings in Woodcliff Lake are significantly wider, meaning that the depth of a residential unit would not allow for a conversion of an existing office space. So there really isn't an option in a borough like Woodcliff Lake or suburban office development that would really allow for the conversion of office space like it might in a place like New York City, where the buildings or office buildings are conventionally more narrow and smaller because of block sizes. There was a question regarding the fact that the residential multifamily could be transient. And I'm going to put Ed on the spot here because I know he's built thousands of residential units. But Ed, could you talk about, or do you have any understanding or knowledge about how long your residents typically stay in your multifamily? I think that, and if you don't have an answer to that, we could do that as part of a site plan application and planning board.
Sure, I could respond to that. I mean, in general, the length that residents tend to stay in their apartments are, it's partly driven by market rate versus affordable, and then it's also driven by the size of the units. Residents in, studio or one-bedroom apartments tend to stay for shorter periods of time, right? Normally, residents are signing a minimum of 12-month lease terms, so that's generally the minimum, but a one-bedroom renter on average might be staying for 2 or 3 or maybe 4 years. Whereas a resident that's leasing a 2-bedroom or a 2-bedroom plus den or a 3-bedroom unit, market rate could be staying on average for a longer period than that. Could be 5, 6, 7 years. The affordable residents tend, across both unit types, 1, 2, and even 3-bedroom units, tend to stay even longer than market rate
So
residents.
I would ask maybe as a part of a site plan application, if you could come in with hard data from your other projects
Sure.
that you've built.
Happy to.
There was a question regarding the floor height from Chestnut Ridge Road. It's a 4-story building as viewed from Chestnut Ridge Road, but as was presented, the berm that is on Chestnut Ridge Road will stay along with the vegetation. And I'm sure as a part of a site plan application that will be shown. The valuation questions and taxes will be part of the financial questions. There are stores that are being proposed as a part of this that are required in the redevelopment plan. There were a number of questions regarding stormwater management concerns, traffic impact concerns, substation concerns. I will say that as a part of a site plan application, the developer will be providing specific and very detailed plans about that. Typically, as a part of a site plan application, they'll go and reach out to the water company and get a letter that says whether or not there is availability in terms of pressure and water, as well as utilities for the site as a part of a site plan application. The project requires that there be a maximum of 30% building coverage, and a minimum of 45% pervious coverage, meaning that 45% of the site has to be what we would deem as being pervious. That would be typically grass, that type of use. So there is a significant amount of pervious required as a part of the site. We answered the supportive housing. Again, I guess a number of questions about the services. Also questions about the school age numbers, and I think as a part of a site plan application, that would be provided in greater detail. We answered the question regarding affordable, the question about students in supportive housing. In regards to whether or not it's designated, the property has been designated. This evening is about a redevelopment plan, not a pilot, although a financial agreement would have to be presented by the mayor and council to the public. Percentage of open space we indicated. There are 40 supportive housing units and 34 affordable housing units. 40 supportive beds, 26 units. To meet the 74 needed in order to make the 20% set aside. So in regards to the traffic considerations, as was indicated, both of these roads are county roads, so the county will be heavily involved with any improvements that are provided along the county road to make sure that it's safe. That would be part of a site plan application. EV would be provided as a part of a site plan application. What I would say is that regarding the stormwater management and regarding the EV, all of these will have to meet the state requirements. NJDEP has very stringent requirements for the amount of stormwater that is permitted to flow off the site. Those requirements have greatly been bolstered within the last year. In other words, the requirements are far greater today than they were even 2 years ago. So as a part of a site plan application, the developer will have to prove that the stormwater management requirements are met. Regarding the Hilton, a number of questions were asked. I just want to say that the borough has gone through and updated its master plan in 2024. An amendment was adopted. That master plan is located on the borough's website. As Wendy had indicated, master plans have a 10-year look at a municipality and provide recommendations that mayor and council should consider moving forward in terms of policy decisions. And that master plan is on the website if you have any questions to review it. And if you think that certain things within the master plan need to be updated, then we would encourage you to come in front of the mayor and council and kind of talk about those master plan items that should be updated or are not included. And regarding the water feature, again, I think as a part of a site plan application, the applicant will talk about sustainable design practices as well as environmental considerations it's taking. And the water feature may or may not be something but I'm sure that they'll talk about that regarding the environmental impacts and what other things they're doing from a development standpoint. The redevelopment plan does require a significant amount of design standards to ensure higher quality development. And that, as Wendy indicated, is both for the market rate and for the affordable. I'm sure the answer regarding what the mayor and council can do, as well as what residents can do, will be something the mayor and council will look to discuss and bring back to the community. I don't know the answer to the third assessed value versus Hilton, but what I'll say is that, again, as a part of any financial discussions that are they'll be had in front of the public. That will be something that will be presented and discussed, and greater detail can be given to that. I believe that's all of I might have missed a couple. If I did, if anybody's got any that I missed.
Well, there was, and this may be more for Wendy, so only the affordable units will have rent restrictions. The market rate units will have no rent controls on them whatsoever. Is that correct?
Right. So the state, the same way I read those numbers as to what are the income allocations that are allowed for very low, moderate apartments, though, those are set by the state, and maximum rental amounts are also set every year. So that's part of the affirmative marketing. That's out of our hands. I think there was also a question about where the people will be coming from as far as the affordables.
Who's eligible to, I guess, apply for an affordable housing?
So we're in Region 1. So that pulls from Bergen County, Hudson, Sussex, and Passaic, with that being giving the priority to Region 1. Somehow the state was broken into the different regions. That's how it broke out for us. Right now, the state does not allow us to give preference to residents of a town, but going back to what the mayor and council may want residents to do to help with this, talk to your legislators. See, that's where that law came down from.
And Wendy, there was the other question about, is it possible to have multiple sites in which only affordable housing units are located versus incorporating them into a site with market units?
So I'm going to make an assumption that question was aimed at inclusionary sites. Are you about different places in town, or are we talking about 100% affordable?
I understood the question to be, can you
I
just
wasn't sure.
I think it was
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. So with 100% affordable housing, something to keep in mind is the round 4 rules require substantial financial contribution by municipality. So it could be land costs, it's a certain percentage of what the construction cost is. That is something that more than likely would fall on the taxpayers, because the borough would have to bond for that money to support the 100% affordable housing. In this round of rules, the requirements of what you had to have in place before your plan can be accepted with one of those types of projects was extremely high. There needed to already be a contracted developer. You had to have a secure funding source in place. You would have to have a construction schedule. We did not have the land available that the town owned to either purchase or to donate for this. And we didn't have anyone that approached us with enough time, well, really at all, to be able to say that they would be a willing partner in this development. We do have a 100% affordable site from round 3 that is still not developed, and a large portion of your trust funds are already reserved to making sure that those units from round 3 come to fruition. So it's something that's possible. but it wasn't something that was available at the time that the plan had to be put together in June.
So I just want to double click on that point just to make sure everybody understood it. Is what you're saying, if we were to put in a new set of affordable housing, a building somewhere in town, 100% affordable, the taxpayers would have to pay for a portion of it versus this scenario where developer is paying for a portion of it?
Correct.
Good portion.
And you would have to be willing to bond for any shortfall that the developer then had thereafter. I mean, the 100% developer.
So you could see how our hands are tied by state law. And I mean, there was a question, I believe, by Laura Jefferson Corrado as to what we could do as a community to stop this madness. Let me just give you another example, because again, I like to show examples of what happens when we fight affordable housing. The question was, why don't we join the Montvale lawsuit? There's 34, 35 municipalities that have joined Montvale to fight this mandate. They filed in Superior Court, and I could tell you, at every single level of court, all the way from the Superior Court to the Supreme Court of New Jersey, Montvale has been rebuffed and denied. Okay? They spent countless amount of legal funds to prosecute this action. Now they're trying to go on to the federal courts to see if they have relief. If they're successful, and we will hope they're successful, every single town, the 565 municipalities in the state of New Jersey will benefit without our taxpayers spending a penny on the litigation. But so far, they have spent countless amount of money, and the state of New Jersey has denied every single one of their petitions. All right, so that's one aspect of that litigation that's still ongoing. Again, the other aspect is change the law. And again, November, and then January 16th, there'll be a change of administration. It's up to you to make that decision. As to the school-aged children and the impact on our community, I think I'm the only one up here that's been up here a long time, that went through the development of the Gables, right? And I remember in this very room, a lot of people came out to talk about the very issues that you are addressing today. And when the Gables development came on, it's about 40 townhomes at the Gables. And a big concern was the impact on our school system. Well, all the way from the construction of the Gables to its first residents to today, the largest amount of students that have been to our school system have been 7 students out of 40 units. Now, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen with this development and future development with Cliff Lake, but that's our one example that we have in terms of the impact on our school system and how many children come out of a specific development. So we will look at that and we will study that impact with our experts and we will provide that information to you. But that's just 2 examples on how we could control things and how we could fight things to make this stop. So Ed, I just want to turn over to you and see if you have any comments on.
Sure.
on
Yeah,
things
no, I
that were
had
addressed.
just a few other questions that we could offer responses on. I think between Wendy and Fran, they covered at least 90%, if not more. Sure, I can.
Potential revenue from the site versus what the site is paying now and what that.
Sure. So maybe I can start with, there was a question that was raised about the 1/3 of the current assessment and what that comment was meant to address. So my point on that was that the $1.5 million a year in annual taxes that are being generated for the site is based on a $70 million assessment for the property, which is significantly more than what the land is worth vacant. And what I mean by that is 90% of that $70 million assessment is actually assigned to the improvements on the property, not the land. So you could argue that the land, based on the current assessment, is only 10% of the total. In reality, the land is worth a bit more than what it's currently assessed for. I think the improvements are assessed for more than what their value is. So we assumed a little bit of a middle ground that the land assessment would be somewhere in the range of about 1/3 of the current assessment. And that was the number that we used to calculate what the realistic taxes for the property would be into the future, right? Because $1.5 million a year is not sustainable for this property. It's based on a very high assessment given the current use. If the property were not to be redeveloped, you could argue that the current taxes would be about a third of the existing taxes, which would only be $500,000 a year. And when we compared our revenue for the project, which the tax projections that we mentioned, 54 million in additional revenue to the borough over the next 30 years, up to as much as 78 million. That range was based on whether you assume the existing taxes at $1.5 million a year continue, or you assume a lower number like 500,000 a year, with annual increases continues over the next 30 years. That was the bottom number in our assessment, right? The 54 to 78 million is the difference, right? To calculate the top number, which is the total amount that the project would generate, it would be a function of our revenue from the site, how much we collect in rent from residents, how much the restaurants generate in rent from retail tenants. And then we took a percentage of that revenue, and that's how we arrived at the projected total taxes, which, just to keep it simple, we estimate at completion of the project could be around $2 million a year, but that would increase to $4 to $5 million a year over the 30-year period that we studied. And that, right.
So this is what we'll do. When, after you answer all the questions, you can stay and answer the questions, because we have another meeting to do.
Of course. Okay. So
yeah. So Ed, you could step outside and speak to them and
Sure,
answer
of
any
course.
questions that you'd like, but let's move on
Okay.
with your
So
questions.
the only maybe 3 or 4 other questions. There was a question about utilities. Do we intend to have gas in the buildings as opposed to all electric? We do normally build residential communities with gas because residents prefer, both from an energy efficiency point of view and from a convenience point of view, to have some gas appliances. The most common appliances are ranges, gas dryers. Usually the HVAC units in these buildings are gas fueled. So we do intend to have gas and gas services available at the property. There was a question about water and sewer. Have we spoken to Park Ridge Water? We have had discussions with them. They are the water purveyor for this area. We would have to make an application to them. They would have to approve our application. Then it would have to go on to the DEP for approval by the state. Same applies for sewer rather. Sewer is provided by the BCUA, which is a regional sewer authority in Bergen County, and the Northwest BCUA, which serves parts of northern Bergen. We would have to get their approval, and then we would have to get approval from the DEP. Based on our investigations to date, there's adequate sewer capacity to serve the project. There was a question regarding the Glen Road driveways and the proximity to the parkway, but we'll get into that more during our planning board testimony. And then finally, a comment about affordable housing. I know Wendy, covered this in significant detail. But the comment that was made specifically about Saddle River and, why isn't Wycliffe Lake doing what Saddle River's done? They have a 100% affordable housing project. They actually have 2, one that was built many years ago and one that's just finishing now at Route 17. I've lived in Saddle River for 40 years and I spent 9 years on the planning board. So I had a front row seat at a lot of the affordable housing planning that's been done over the course of the last 10 years. There's only one affordable housing project that's currently proposed as part of Saddle River's 3rd and 4th round. There are 4 other inclusionary developments, one at the Saddle River Executive Center, which is the office site on the west side of Route 17, just north of East Allendale Road. The 100% affordable project is also on East Allendale Road. It's on the east side of Route 17. There's several projects in the heart of Saddle River that are single-family homes, one that was formerly owned by Rosie O'Donnell, which has gotten a lot of press, that's being proposed for townhomes. There's another one further to the east on East Allendale. So, it's very hard to meet 100% of a borough's affordable housing requirement with 100% of support, affordable housing projects for the reasons Wendy mentioned, and because, even if it was allowed by the state, the cost for a borough to subsidize an 100% affordable housing project is meaningful. And from a planning point of view, inclusionary housing, mixed affordable and market rate housing is really what is being promoted in our state. Whether you agree with it or you don't, it's having affordable residents living in communities with market rate residents is really what the vast majority of affordable housing in New Jersey is. Sure.
That's incorrect. I mean, I'm looking right here at how they funded that project, and that was not how it worked. I mean, M&T Bank and TD Bank acted as a main financial backers for the project. So
That project was a round 3 project. As I indicated, the requirements for municipal support of 100% affordable has changed in the current legislation. They would have to put in more money. Plus, they also bought the properties, which were substantial as well. So the contribution by the municipality has increased with the round 4 rules.
Ed, do you have anything else?
My last comment is a question about what are the rents typically for affordable units. I know Wendy gave the income limits for affordable residents to qualify, but the rents for affordable units, depending on whether they're very low, or moderate, and depending on what the prices are of the market rate units, tend to be 20, 25, maybe 30% of what a market rate unit rents for. So significantly less than the market rate units. Certain moderate affordable units can be a little bit more, but the average across very low, and moderate, especially in communities like Woodcliff Lake, where the market rate rents are higher than average, are in that 20 to 30% range, which is why it's so difficult to, which is why you need the market rate units to subsidize the affordables. The affordables are not even close to break even from a value to cost.
Okay, so we're going to take a break now. And Ed, if you could stick around, if in case they have any further questions, you can speak outside with them. No. Afterwards, because we have more of a meeting to go on. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Let's take a break. As to, yeah, roll call. Okay, as to ordinance number,
Roll call now.
you roll call?
Roll call to resume the meeting.
Oh, roll call to resume the meeting?
Councilwoman Brodsky. Here. Councilwoman Margolis. Here. Councilwoman Marsh. Here. Councilman Pollock.
Here.
Council President Stern. Present. Mayor Rendo.
Here. Okay, ordinance number 2511, motion to adopt. Oh, so we read the title, an ordinance of the Borough of Woodcliff Lake, I'm so tired. In Bergen County, adopting block 601, lot 1, redevelopment plan. Is there a motion to adopt?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bernano? Yes. Ms. Brodsky?
Yes.
Ms. Margolis?
Yes.
Ms. Marsh?
Yes.
Mr. Pollock?
Yes.
And Mr. Stern?
Okay, motion to open for public comment. Again.
Motion.
So,
Yeah, this is the right.
And this is general open.
General.
Yeah,
Comment
general
for
open.
anything.
Second.
all in favor?
Motion, second.
Motion
Yes.
second.
None opposed? Anybody like to speak on anything on this agenda or on anything that you want to discuss or comment on? No break dancing?
Seeing no one.
Motion to
Seeing no
close
one,
to the
motion to
public.
close? Oh, you want to come up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
Well, we need to, so they can hear you at home.
Before thousands. I don't need a
No,
microphone.
they need, so they
Just
can
for the
hear you at
record.
home, Leslie.
Oh,
You mean
People
it's being,
watching.
you mean it's being televised?
It's not televised, it's being streamed. It has every week, every month. I explained it to Burke. He should have passed
okay,
it along.
just state your name and the town.
Leslie Maltz.
Thank you.
That's it. I urge you, please publicize these meetings. Please share more information. You guys are the worst communicators. I mean, I've taught people to communicate better than you do. I was vice president of Columbia University through the worst of times. You guys set a new limit for the poor communication. I don't want to hear, isn't that cute? Isn't this nice? Wasn't that sweet? I want to hear when there's something going on that's going to affect our future, all of us. And you've got to do a better job at that. There's a reason.
I mean, people need to, maybe you have family members who post inaccurate information to people, or just make stuff up. You know, talk
No,
about-
I'm not saying make stuff up.
Communication's a two-way street, so everything we do is open to the public. Everything we do is
It's
posted on the website, it's posted on, a lot of it's posted on Facebook. But communication's a two-way street. So when I see somebody who's knowingly posting false information about, is there a meeting in August? Oh, maybe there's 2 meetings this month. 1,200 units, there's 90,000 square feet of retail, right? Communication's a two-way street. So
Yes,
let's
it
try to-
is.
Let's try to get accurate information.
I post nothing about the town on Facebook. I post nothing about myself on Facebook. So Facebook is crap. All I'm saying is you're working for everybody's benefit.
Correct.
Let everybody know what's happening, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because if Bert didn't tell me about this, I wouldn't be here tonight. I got other things to do.
Leslie, we'll look at what we're doing and see what we can do better and if there's any changes we can make. We'll see if we can make any changes. We'll talk about what we do and see if there's anything else we can add to it.
Just get the word out.
Thank you.
I mean, that's what we rely on you to do.
Mhm.
That's why you're our representatives. Please do that.
Very good. Thank you, Leslie. Anyone else like to speak on anything? Okay. Motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? None? Thank you. Approval of minutes, August 18, 2025 open session. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? None? Motion passes. August 18, 2025 closed session. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? None? Motion passes. Okay, proclamation, Patriot Day 2025, the 24th anniversary of September 11th terrorist attack is in your packet. We remember those who passed away on September 11th. We had that ceremony was very nice, run by the police department, fire department, and ambulance corps was present. So thank you very much for that.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt. Can we also have a moment of silence? It's the anniversary tomorrow of the Dreyerman family.
Oh,
And they had their unveiling this weekend, and Max was home, and I just want to
okay.
make sure that we,
Moment of silence for the Dreyerman family. Okay, thank you so much. All right, I'm not going to speak anything on the mayor's report. I'll pass that. Fire department appointments, appointment of Moshi. Shavansky to the Wycliffe Lake Volunteer Fire Department.
Is there a motion?
Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? None? So congratulations, Moshi.
Congratulations.
Council members' reports, hopefully are we skipping that? It's up to you guys.
Majority says yeah, unless anybody has, really wants to.
I mean, wait, just quickly, our next planning board meeting will be on the 30th. It won't be next week because of the holiday, so it is the 30th.
Very good.
So just to make that clear.
It's on the website.
So the next planning board meeting.
Land use meeting, yes.
Anyone else wants to add anything?
Just one notation in the engineer's report. He notates that the south lot of the train station will be closed for paving tentatively 9/19 to 9/20. We found out today that that date is going to be pushed slightly. That will be posted and communicated once we get a new date. So that will not be happening this week.
Thank you, Councilman Pollock. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Thank you. Just after coming off 6 weeks of series of summer concerts with Woodcliff Wednesdays, we're happy to say that we will have Oktoberfest on Saturday, September 27th from 3 to 8 at Rinsler. And then we have a whole series of events coming in October to support our new health and wellness initiative titled Live the Challenge, Embracing a Healthier Lifestyle Together. Along with events and panel discussions, we're actually able to highlight some of our own Woodcliff Lake residents who work in this field, which I think is pretty great. And then we'll finish off the month Saturday, October 25th with the Halloween parade at the park with fun activities and goodies for the kids. So details for all of this, we hope to get on a calendar this week. Thank you.
Great, and some events from the DPW department.
Go ahead.
We have shredding this Saturday on 9/21 from 9 to 1. So it'll be outside the Ecology Center. And then from the fire department, we have October 9th is the 21st is Sunday. Is that Sunday? Yes.
I think it's Sunday.
Sunday, sorry, I apologize. Sunday.
21st is Sunday.
I apologize. And October 9th, we have the fire station open house from 6 to 8 p.m. All are welcome. There'll be snacks and you can use a fire extinguisher, go through a smokehouse. And then on October 19th, we have our second annual chili cook-off.
Sign up now, though.
Sign up now. We sign up online from 1 to 4. And we will have a bake sale, chili, and drinks.
Beer.
Councilman Stern, you have anything?
One other notation, mistaken, just a quick question. You sent us an email that the annual flu clinic is Wednesday, September 17th. I believe that is open to all residents at Borough Hall from 10 to 12. And they need to sign up ahead of
The
time.
link is on the website. They encourage folks to.
You pre-register. But flu clinic, Borough Hall, open to all residents. Register in advance.
So they want to know the tennis court lighting issues at Woodcliff Lake Complex have been fully restored. Lights are now functioning as they're supposed to be.
Very good.
People have been asking about that.
Okay, engineer's report is in your packet. Padilla is not going to say anything as to the administrator's report. Consent
All in
agenda.
favor?
Motion.
Wait. Consent agenda, we need to add the resolution approving payment from BMW and Turner Construction.
Motion to add the resolution Deb you just said.
Amend the consent agenda to add 243. 243.
I motion.
Sorry.
Second.
Yeah,
Second.
I
As
have an
amended.
addition. Sorry.
Yes.
I also wanted to see if I can make a change on Resolution 25-234 based on our previous discussion, adding a police or security review to the application.
Very good. Motion and consent agenda as amended.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor is consent
Yes.
agenda.
Yes, we're good.
Very good. Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
None opposed? Thank you, everyone.
Motion to go get a drink.